Up with a little guy saluting me.
It's the wake-up call with KB and Andy.
Come on, let's wake up.
Gotta wake up.
Are you sure you want to wake up to this?
Come on now, wake up.
I can't wait to wake up.
Wake up, idiot.
Well, as we wake up here on this first day of October, we will begin our Rick Carlisle weekly segments beginning at 8 a.m. this morning. And who knows? Last year, those went till what? The Tuesday after the Indy 500?
Yeah, it took a while, didn't it?
Those would
be nice if I
deep.
turned my microphone on as well.
Into the 2024 calendar year. Hopefully
Looking forward to it.
In 2025. So Rick Carlisle, 8 o'clock as the Pacers begin training camp today, 1 week away from their first preseason game. Will Carroll on at 9. As much as I enjoy our conversations with Will, usually that means there is a major, or I should say a notable injury in town, probably the better way to put it. And we certainly have that here as we start the month of October. So a good morning to everyone out there. Thank you for tuning in. That was the voice of Andy Sweeney. I'm Kevin Bowen. And Mark Dykton, as always, I guess it's a bit fitting that with the weather we've had to end the month of September, we got certainly some sad news, frankly, yesterday, right after our show ended. Then again late last night with the passing of Dikembe Mutombo. Again, right after our show ended, brain cancer at the age of 58. I think when you throw out the words humanitarian, or certainly one that has used his platform, he would be near the top of the professional sports list. And then late last night, at the age of 83, Pete Rose passing, the all-time hits leader, Charlie Hustle, certainly one of the more iconic figures in the game of baseball, and one that, I think in a way, Andy, he might have a bit of a Bob Knight influence here in our state.
Oh, there's no doubt.
There's certainly an unbelievable talent in his sport, but you quickly mentioned the word complex in discussing how he is viewed. So, just kind of a sad, but given like the weather we had to end September all across the United States, almost an eerie fitting way to end the month.
It really was. And good morning to you guys. We need to dive in. Mark, do you mind talking? Mark Dykton had a night last night, which we got to get into. He didn't have a normal night where it's bath night, you put the kids to bed and everything is good. My man spent how long? 2.5 hours in the emergency room last night?
Dear Lord, Mark.
He had a bed fall on him.
Yeah, I was assembling a bunk bed for my two youngest daughters.
KB looked up.
I was sitting on the floor in their bedroom, and there's all these metal pieces and this and that leaning against walls. And then my youngest put her hand on one of them, unbeknownst to me, as my head is down, and a giant metal piece came crashing down into my skull, cracked my head open.
Whoa!
So that was fun.
Where are the stitches?
No stitches. It stopped bleeding,
They just glued him together.
Yeah.
They just glued the top of his head
together.
together.
Covered in blood as I
How
drove
about that?
myself to the hospital because the girls had ballet. So Ashley went to go bring them to ballet while I'm off to the ER. And 2.5 hours later, I'm lucid. I took a nap.
Maybe I should have gotten here a little bit earlier to check on Mark.
Well, that's what I said. He goes, well, I spent 2.5 hours in the emergency room. I go, are you okay?
Well,
I go, it's 6:50 in the morning. Are you okay?
Some might say they wanted to trade spots with Mark instead of watching Titans-Dolphins.
And I was lucky.
Hey, listen.
I was lucky. I showed Andy this. I'm like, this piece that like holds the bed on missed me by like 6 inches.
Yeah, not good. It's got a big jagged edge on the side.
You could still be in the hospital right now.
Yeah.
Damn, I'm glad you're all right,
Nathaniel Finch would be across from us this morning. That's exactly right. But no, listen, you mentioned, I got to meet Pete Rose a couple different times at some functions. It was very much a hello, it wasn't a I'm gonna go hang out and we're gonna go bet some ponies, if you will. Go back and listen. There used to be, and people, I think is it Laconia? You guys aren't gonna know. Near Cincinnati, there used to be a horse racing track. And a couple years ago, Pete Rose went on with the Dan Le Batard show, and he talked about his worst beat that he ever had when he was a gambler. He was always a gambler in his gambling career at that point. And,
is it Belterra? Is that what you're thinking of?
Well, that's what it is now. They've all been farmed out, but it had a different name back 20, 25 plus years ago. And he's talking about the horse that he bet was was up 6-7 lengths, and it was going to win, and it was an easy one. And, it's like winning an NFL bet in the first quarter, right? You just cruise the rest of the game. And so his horse is cruising. It's on the stretch. It's going to go to the finish line, and a deer comes out of the woods and hits his horse. Gotta go listen to that story. Pete Rose is a character, man. And, I'll say this. I know complex is the word, and at times beyond complex. I think for me, I think there is a generation of sports fans and a generation of sports fans in this area, obviously, probably more Ohio, that absolutely loved, worship, and adored Pete Rose.
Oh, without question.
And I think that was some of the pain you
just
felt.
Like Bob Knight.
Yeah,
frankly.
1,000% that you felt last night. And then, man, you mentioned Dikembe Mutombo. I had no idea that he was, that sick. And, I loved watching him play, obviously. He always felt like he was the underdog. He made himself self-made into one of the great, shot blockers and defensive players at all time. And then you mentioned, more importantly, the humanitarian stuff. I mean, that to me was what flooded Twitter last night. Yeah, there was the wagging the finger at MJ when he was with the Hawks. There was all of that stuff. There was holding the basketball, being part of that Nuggets great win back in the day. But it was just the lives that he affected across the globe. So, man, you're right. It was just a gloomy night, quite frankly.
I saw a story yesterday where Dikembe Mutombo's mother passed in the war-torn country of Congo back in the day due to the inability for an ambulance to get her to a hospital. And so what does Dikembe Mutombo do? He builds a hospital in his hometown.
Yeah.
I mean, again, you want to talk about words, humanitarian, platform, those sorts of things. And certainly you think about the African influence growing in today's NBA. I mean, what just happened in the Olympics with South Sudan? Listen to Pascal Siakam, listen to Joel Embiid, some of these guys. And again, what Dikembe Mutombo did for that entire continent as well. And then obviously Rose. To me, if I had to pick out a singular moment, it's that slide in the All-Star game of we have now, I think very deservedly, poked plenty of fun at what the MLB All-Star game has turned into. And here's Pete Rose in the 1970 All-Star game running over Ray Fosse. It's, game 7, bottom of the ninth.
Oh, that's great.
2 outs, et cetera there. So, yes, certainly just a really sad way to end the month of September. As we transition today, certainly a ton to get to. As we mentioned, Rick Carlisle going to join us 8 o'clock. Will Carroll at 9. Plenty to get to on the Colts front and the Pacers front. They had media day yesterday. And then on the Colts side of it, I guess we're no longer talking about the hip. We maybe have moved over to other body parts.
Yeah, we had the abdominal strain.
Oblique and abdominal.
Ooh, the obliques.
Was kind of where things started to transition to yesterday. We'll ask Will Carroll his thoughts generally on all of this. I know Will was a little puzzled by wait a minute, the hip is now turning into a little bit of a different area on your body. By no means is he being ruled out yet for Sunday. So we'll obviously continue to watch this as the week moves along. But, when Shane Steichen said yesterday, he was asked pretty directly, is this a hip pointer? And he wouldn't, say that. He wouldn't confirm that. You knew something, the MRI results, potentially could lead to something else there. So, again, we'll continue to look into that. And Jonathan Taylor, indeed, it is a right ankle sprain, which is the same ankle he fought through throughout much of that 2022 season.
Yeah, I tell you what, I think my strongest take today is, and we'll dive more into this, I'm sure it's 7:35, but given Anthony Richardson, and I know he is officially day today, whether it's more of an oblique or an abdominal strain or something in the hip, whatever the hell it is. And by the way, yesterday, KB, I'm listening to Shane Steichen. I think yesterday Shane Steichen tried to give the absolute least he could ever give. I think he gave the least press conference-wise that he has ever given in a year plus, in a year and a half here in Indianapolis. And I did go back.
He treats press conferences like I treat a Sunday after a bachelor party.
Good God.
Just give no effort.
It is just it is just unbelievable.
Just get it done, baby. Survive to Monday. Get the Sunday scaries over with.
You even tried. I forget, it was you and a few others, or tried. Yeah, he's got an ankle. Well, this is the same ankle. Yeah, he's got an ankle. He's not giving anything. Now, on Colts Roundtable last night, with Matt Taylor, he gave a little bit more. So we can hear some of that as we go today. But, I mean, for me, how I sit here on this Tuesday, and listen, practice on Wednesday, Thursday is a big day, Friday is obviously a key day. And, Josh Downs was and called himself, if you remember going into that Green Bay game in week 2, KB. He called himself like 85%, getting close to 90%. Like, that's what he said when he was more than 5.5, almost 6 weeks from that from his high ankle sprain. The reason I bring that up is not only because of Jonathan Taylor, although we could look at that. If he's out 3, 4, 5 weeks, that's going to be a disaster for the Indianapolis Colts. It's the fact that they kept him out, right? I mean, Josh Downs even admitted that Steichen and Ballard said, we're going to give it one more week so he doesn't play in Green Bay. Well, knowing what we know about Anthony Richardson, and if Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen, especially Ballard, if they're going to keep the same, or at least, and again, I know quarterbacks don't play by the same rules, if they're going to keep similar rules on injured players and resting them for an additional week to get them back to 100%, it's difficult for me to see Anthony Richardson playing on Sunday. And if it affects his listen, that's how I feel on Tuesday. The data could change. And then on top of that, if his mobility isn't where it needs to be, and he's much more of a back, 5 steps and pass, that's not his strength. Joe Flacco is a better option if that's the way you're going to go. So that's going to be the week. But the Jonathan Taylor injury, honestly, it worries me more. I know the Anthony Richardson stuff is the headline. I get it. He's the franchise quarterback, or we hope he is the franchise quarterback. But man, if this team is without Jonathan Taylor for a few weeks, that is a huge loss. I mean, he is a top 3-4 running back in this league this season.
Well, yeah, I'll add one more on the Richardson front. Certainly, how much does it impact and or limit his mobility? I think you have to start there. And then secondly, I mean, does it impact him at all throwing? And I know some might
That's a good question.
Insert some jokes here about, well, maybe it'll help his accuracy. But, what if it limits him vertically,
sure,
over the top? That is such a huge element to his game. So I think it's kind of twofold with where we're at. Again, abdominal, oblique, hip. We'll discuss all that when Will Carroll joins us coming up at 9. And then I think it's just worth mentioning with Taylor, yes, this was now multiple years ago when he suffered that high ankle sprain in 2022. And Taylor would probably disagree with me, but we probably should acknowledge that was pre-second contract, and there was a lot of drama revolving that. That was a very start and stop season. It was play 4, sit 2, play 2, sit 1, play 5, and then goes on injured reserve for the final 3+ games of the season. So, Taylor is one of the more in-tune players I've ever seen with his body in the NFL. And it's been that way since his days at Wisconsin.
Yep.
So, I don't think, I think Taylor is a very, I think he's a pretty durable running back when you look at his career. But, there were days in 2022 where he'd practice 2 days in a week and wouldn't play. For the most part, you practice 2 days in a week.
You're playing.
You're going to play.
Yeah, it's surprising to not play.
So that's just something to keep an eye on. But certainly I think you're spot on in just the health and the importance, I should say, of Jonathan Taylor. And we'll talk about Matt Gay as well. I'll give Matt Gay some credit. He definitely did not need to meet the media yesterday, but he did and explained a little bit more on his kicking woe fronts.
You would rather be physical than mental with the kicker, right? Like, you would rather him have a strained hammy right now instead of, when he goes up there, it's like golf. It's just like golf. You would rather a guy have something wrong with his arm than going up there on a 13-foot putt and having the yips every single time.
Yeah, basically.
You ever had the yips before on the golf course?
Well, certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly. He is unsure of where to line up. I guess if you wanted to just kind of boil it down to a very simple term there. Again, Rick Carlisle going to join us at 8. What's on your mind with Coach Carlisle today after Pacers Media Day?
Yeah, so, a lot of the rhetoric it's been twofold. Number one, it's been around the defense. And I'm interested in how good of a defense does Carlisle think they can actually have? I think it goes back to, you look at teams in football, a team that's just great on offense, can go out there and score a bunch of points. Maybe even you saw it last night. Definitely not in the Titans-Dolphins game, which, by the way, Tua, they're going to be hurrying Tua back, right? Concussion, all right, you get back after those 4 weeks. They're terrible without him. But, you see, like, the Lions, they don't have the best defense. They allow 29 points, but they can put up 42. So in the NBA, can a team that is so efficient and so good and so dialed in and together and cohesive on offense, can they become, at least in an average or maybe even a little bit above average, team on defense? They saw how much that mattered in the postseason. And then yesterday, The second, I would just to piggyback that, yesterday Tyrese Halliburton, I thought, KB, I don't know, I cut some of this for our morning checkdowns. I thought he had some interesting remarks on the humbling on going over to Team USA basketball and realizing that he needed to do different things to his game and also not playing when he went over there, being in a very different situation than he had been in many years in competitive basketball. So I found that interesting. And then, of course, the second thing is all the Jarris Walker and Benedict Mathurin stuff. And I'm a little fatigued on talking about it, but it is clear they are playing this game, I feel like, and this would be a question for Rick. They're almost playing this game like I feel like Benedict's back. I think Mathurin is back and he's going to get his minutes. But it's almost like they're trying to play like maybe some of those minutes aren't there. And I don't know what's true with the minutes of Benedict Mathurin. The reason I don't bring up Jarris Walker is I think he's going to have to do some work and, we'll have to take some time to get into this rotation. But, I figured Mathurin would be, sixth guy on this team, seventh guy on this team. If that's not the case, and if 25 minutes plus is not the case, that would be surprising early on in the season.
The Pacers give you word porn. That's what they give you.
Well,
when you compare their quotes to
to Steichens,
well,
Steichens said nothing yesterday,
or frankly, a large majority of Colts players. I mean, it is a far cry from listening to the Pacers.
No, they really do. Yeah.
You mentioned Halliburton's candor about the Olympics.
Yeah.
I mean, I think when you listen to Mathurin right now, again, I'm biased. I've always been a Mathurin guy, but Tyrese Halliburton in one sentence calls him hard-headed, but then also he mentions boy, I think he's pretty humbled by what just transpired late last season. And you listen to Mathurin, and he talks a very different game than he usually is. I mean, we talk brash, confident, borderline cocky, all of that, and yet he's sitting there yesterday, very similar to the end of the season, being like, oh no, I mean, I watched how this team played without me. I know that I need to make some changes in my game. Now, again, watching those actions play out, I'm going to be fascinated by. But still, those comments, I thought Siakam had such a great comment and just a peak veteran NBA comment of you want to be the team that when you show up on the schedule, the opponent dreads you. And over an 82-night season, that's hard to maintain, but it's so critical to trying to get home court, which I think that is probably, if you want to lay a baseline goal for the regular season, getting one of those top 4 seeds, I think needs to be kind of where your baseline goal is. And then lastly, I think we have to note Miles Turner putting on 7 pounds of muscle and pretty adamant, no, this is because of rebounding. This is because of the need to be a little bit more physical down there. And again, Turner's comments yesterday, he admitted that he had reached a level of his career where, there's a little bit of complacency that kind of fell into his game. But then he's like, wait a minute, I'm tasting success, I would argue individually and certainly team-wise, that he had not yet gotten to in his career.
Sure.
And now all of a sudden he's like, wait a minute, I love that feeling. I want more of it. And so, again, those words are kind of intriguing. So it's October 1st. You can only go off of those words, but I thought there were different branches of the tree yesterday from the Pacers that all were very, very interesting. And the big picture is, and Tyrese was adamant, Kurt Signetti says, Google me, I win. Tyrese Halliburton says, just Google the Pacers right now.
I told you.
Because we are slighted.
I told you.
And
I told you.
They're going to look for any way. How do you maintain that edge?
Right.
Because they've played the understandable underdog role here in the past few years. Now, how do they get there? So, again, I thought there were a lot of interesting comments from the Pacers yesterday.
I really go into this season with it's too early to talk about the trade deadline around, what is it, Halloween and everything. I go into this season really
February. For the trade deadline.
February. I don't know why I thought it was. Why am I thinking Halloween?
Well, the NFL trade deadline.
Okay, I was about to say that's 4 weeks into the season. I go into this season skeptical if Benedict Mathurin is a fit for this basketball team. I really do. Not saying he's going to be traded in February, although, of course, that would always be out there. There's just something about it, KB. Everyone's talking about, he's going to have to conform to us. It's the fit. It's the fit. It's the fit. And that's an eyebrow raiser. To me, there's not a bunch of other guys on the team that you talk about that like.
I think you can find the happy medium. Does he need to make some sacrifices to help the team? Yes. Does he also bring an element that is lacking when he's not out there?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, both are right.
That can't be lost. He is your best option in creating an easy bucket, in getting to the foul line, and being a guy that you throw the ball to, and his name is not Halliburton and Siakam, and he can go make a play for you. And sure, yes, defensively, you want him to grow. You don't want the ball to be, 100% stagnant when it gets into his hands offensively. So, and that's what's going to be difficult, yet fascinating. I use both those words to describe Halliburton. So again, Rick Carlisle, 8 o'clock, Joel A. Erickson, 8:30. And the injury expert, Will Carroll, coming up at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, it's always bad when we talk with Will Carroll, so we'll have to tell him that, beforehand. Sorry we're having to talk to you. That must mean
We'll get
something.
his World Series pick. That was a wild game, 161 yesterday.
That was pretty
right?
crazy yesterday. Yeah, I watched a couple hours of baseball in the middle of the day yesterday.
I feel like we each need to make a pick for the playoffs.
That's fine. We can do that.
Okay.
I got no
We
problem.
put
At
a
least
six-pack of beer on the line for the winner.
Now
between the other
you're going to make me actually look up who's in the playoffs.
you got to look
Hey.
up. You got to look up who's playing. We do have
We know
4
it's not
games
our
today.
teams, Kev.
Amen to that.
Well, Yankees will be out sooner rather than later, especially if they play the A's. All right, let's take a break. Coming up on the other side, your morning check down. What did Shane Steichen say yesterday? Some of that Tyrese Halliburton sound as well. Plus your news and scores from overnight. 2 games in Monday Night Football. We'll get you caught up with that. Rick Carlisle at 8 o'clock. Joel A. Erickson coming your way at 8:30. Will Carroll at 9 o'clock. Appreciate you waking up with us. Wake up call 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
brought to you by Marion University Football, pursuing another NAIA championship this season. Don't miss the on-campus action at Ascension St. Vincent Field. Visit NUnites.com for tickets.
Fresh off his Notre Dame Louisville appearance, Rick Carlisle going to join us here coming up at 8 o'clock. So the Pacers head coach getting ready for training camp. First preseason game a week from tonight. Rick Carlisle, Tuesdays at 8. You're used to that. He will join us here in a few. Andy Sweeney, go ahead with a morning check down.
Yeah, as always, let's start with the Colts. Shane Steichen spoke yesterday, once with the assembled media via Zoom, and then he had the Colts roundtable later on that night. Let's give you one from each of those. The first one here, Mark, let's get clip one going. Shane Steichen is back and forth with Nate Atkins of the Star on the injury to Jonathan Taylor.
With Jonathan, is it the same ankle he had issues with in 22 and 23?
Yeah, he has an ankle sprain right now.
Okay. With that, is there any consideration for like the short-term IR or anything like that?
Not as of now.
Was that not Nate? Who was
Jake
that?
Arthur.
Oh, was that Jake Arthur? Well, I apologize.
Yeah.
I like Jake very much, so I apologize. So that's the back and forth there with Jonathan Taylor. Then later on, Shane Steichen. Now, you asked this question. No offense, you got no answer on it, I believe, during the press conference. What do you need to see from Anthony Richardson to play on Sunday? He answered that a little bit more later in the night on Colts Roundtable.
Well, I just want to make sure he's running around at a good level. Make sure he's running around, throwing the football at a high level. His feet are good. And obviously just, leaning on the doctors and him and how he's feeling going forward.
So you're not ruling out the possibility of practicing as early as Wednesday?
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
All right.
Yep.
Not a lot from Shane Steichen yesterday.
I love the end of that clip. Oh.
And
I love
we'll
the
have
transparency.
Will Carroll join us in 90 minutes to talk more about these injuries. Again, it sounds like we have maybe gone up the body. Is that correct? We've gone from hip to oblique and abdominal. Do I have that right?
I guess
I need an operation
oblique
board here.
Oblique scares me. The reason why, baseball players strain an oblique running to first base, and they're out 3 weeks.
Well,
that's what scares me.
Will Carroll did tweet last night, how did this go from a hip pointer to an oblique strain? They are close but not the same. So, again, a little bit more clarity from Will, hopefully coming up here at 9 o'clock. Colts off today, back to practice. Again, Jonathan Taylor, as we mentioned, that right ankle sprain, and then more on Matt Gay here in a few. All right, last night, Monday Night Football. Let's start with the two opponents that the Colts will actually see coming up in Week 6 and 7, and who knows if they will see Will Levis. Actually, they might want to see Will Levis. That is the Mayo plop. That was reminiscent of what you saw on Levis's interception from last night as he threw it right to the Miami Dolphins.
He's bad.
On that,
He stinks.
AC joint shoulder injury, which certainly we are used to that in this market. Levis was done for the night, or I guess questionable to return, but did not return. The Titans scored 31 points and won, and they had 110 passing yards.
Mason Rudolph had 85. He came in at 85 yards.
So don't look at the Titans scoring 31 and think this was some explosive night through the air. It was not that at all. The Dolphins were absolutely awful, and Tennessee made some plays special teams-wise, got some short fields, and they win that one. So that is their first one of the season. So the Jags are it. That's your only winless team here left in the NFL.
Does that make you a little nervous as a Colts fan?
I think probably losing there every game since 2014.
I know.
Makes you
Yeah, that probably
nervous
is it.
enough.
I know.
And then the other game last night, how about Jared Goff? Not un incompletion for Mr. Goff. Not only was he 18 of 18 throwing the football, how about the throw and catch by Amon St. Brown to Jared Goff?
Yeah, the Philly special.
That was beautiful.
Yeah,
how many times do you see those plays just be disastrous?
Oh, a lot. A lot of the times. You see the Philly special now, what would you say, 2 or 3 times a year? You see it a couple times a year, and I guess Man Campbell, Mr. Football himself, felt like it was the right time. You know the most amazing
42-29 Lions.
Yeah, 42-29, your final last night. You know the most amazing stat coming from this game? The Lions score 42 points, right? That's not crazy. They're a good offense, have a lot of dynamic players. Do you know how many plays they ran on offense last night, KB? They ran 50 plays on offense. They had 45. They had 42 points on 50 plays on offense. That is a staggering number. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, the Lions offense, explosive. I mean, again, what they have there with Jameson Williams, he had the big touchdown last night. Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. I know Laporte has battled some injuries this season, but that is a team the Colts are going to see coming up here in about a month and a half inside of Lucas Oil Stadium. So Two very different games last night on Monday Night Football. As we look ahead to Week 5 in the NFL, we will get our first London game of the year. That's Jets and Vikings, and we are at our first bye weeks of the year. So fantasy teams warned.
I got one fantasy team that's bad, dude. It's all buys.
And some notable ones. I mean, you got Lions, Eagles, not as much Chargers and Titans, but certainly some names there.
Unless you have Lad McConkey, my guy Lad, on the Chargers. Quickly, Major League Baseball playoffs begin today. You have at 2:30. You have Astros and Tigers. That's on ABC. At 4 o'clock, ESPN2. You have Baltimore hosting Kansas City, and then of course the Mets and Braves split last night, so they immediately go on the road. The Mets in Milwaukee taking on the Fighting Joel A. Ericksons. 5:30 on ESPN, and then Game 1, Atlanta on the road in San Diego. 8:30 tonight on ESPN. You got a hunch on any of these? You care? What do you got?
Give me the Phillies to win it all.
Ooh, the Phillies.
If we're going to take a team.
Okay.
You just stole mine.
Well, they're
Kyle Schwarber.
They're one of the best teams, so they should. You should like Schwarber. One of the great home run hitters of your lifetime.
The other thing I was going to mention was shout out to certainly a local name here in the high school ranks. People will recall this one quite well, and now he's got the responsibility of trying to, I guess I would say resurrect. I don't even know if that would be the right term. Jason Simmons is your new play caller for the Purdue Boilermakers. Certainly, again, whether it would be at Hamilton Heights, whether it be at Noblesville, whether it be at Ben Davis, Jason Simmons wore a lot of different hats here from a high school football standpoint in this state. He left Ben Davis a few years ago to go to Miami, Ohio. He was a running backs coach there for a year, joined Purdue this past offseason, and boom, now he is the play caller there. And now you're seeing the trickle-down effect. Saw last night Purdue's lone wide receiver decommitted for 2025. So these are all the ramifications for just the awful, awful start to the Purdue football season here in 2024. So Jason Simmons, as Purdue heads to a place that I don't think they've won in Madison since 2003, I believe it is. So a little bit of Colts-Jags feel. Tack a decade onto it for Purdue at Wisconsin.
I mean, at least he gets his chance to call some plays. You know, I mean, this is your chance. I know it's not a very good team. It's a difficult schedule. It's a limited quarterback and everything else, but you get your chance in Big Ten to call some plays. Let's see how he does.
How about Indiana going for bowl eligibility on October 5th? I mean, how insane is that?
It's great. I'm all
in. A football
in.
program that, like, for years, you just spent the offseason months being like, is there any chance to get to 6? And then it's like, no, there's no. I mean, you can't win 6.
No.
I mean, it's IU football. October 5th.
You just want them to
they're
be
a 2-touchdown favorite with the chance
on
to
the
get
road.
to 6 wins before. I'm trying to even think what's our next holiday? Is it?
Well, it's Halloween, right?
Is it Columbus Day?
It's Halloween count. You got Halloween in 4 or 5
3
weeks
weeks
here.
before Halloween.
I know.
They could get to bowl
Well,
eligibility.
not only that, how many games are they going to be scheduled on the road in the Big Ten? I mean, it's already 2 this season. Like, Scotty, look that up. What's the record they've had of being favored on the road in the Big Ten? It can't be many.
No.
It can't be.
No, not at all.
Again, Joel A. Erickson at 8:30, coming up in about 25 minutes, top of the hour. Rick Carlisle, Pacers head coach, will join us. Back to the Anthony Richardson conversation, something I noticed yesterday, and Jonathan Taylor as well. Appreciate you hanging out with us on this Tuesday on The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Less than 20 minutes from Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle. Again, media day yesterday. Training camp begins today. And it's wild to think 1 week from tonight they will be playing a preseason game. So Rick Carlisle, Tuesdays at 8. Cannot wait to get those started back up. And he will join us here in a bit. Among the Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor items from yesterday, Andy Sweeney, Matt Gay, he did speak to the media, was adamant that his long-distance kicking issue right now is not related to health. Hernia surgery for him late last month, or I guess at this point I should mention August, not September, with today being October 1st. Not related to the quad that we saw him pop up on the injury report with earlier in September as well. No, this is simply the ball is drawing. For those unfamiliar with what a draw is for a right-footed kicker, that's a big old right-to-left hook, if you will, on it, and he needs to start that thing more to the right.
I'm more of a slice guy when it comes to golf.
I would say most right-handed golfers are. Yes,
as you've seen.
I think you hit
out
that,
there back nine.
You hit that IMPD horse post over there at the back nine.
Yeah, if you've been to back nine, they do have they have horses that are all like on the outside. Yeah,
in perfect slice range. Right?
I was shooting at them. Well, does it make you feel any better, worse, or do you not care that it's a mental thing and not a physical one?
I'd say what is a little concerning is he's not been a drawer, and I hate that we're getting so technical into this, but like Matt Gay said, normally I kick a pretty straight ball, and if you watch like his extra points or even that field goal to kind of ice it on Sunday, those are very straight-looking balls. If you look at the 54-yarder he missed, the field goal starts down the middle. Well, then all of a sudden it hooks, and it hooks left. So theoretically, if he starts that right of the upright,
he'll just hook it in.
Does that just hook in? And
right.
You watch some of these kickers. Some of these kickers do have movement.
Sure.
On their field goals, they just obviously play for that. A couple of numbers just to reiterate the Matt Gay struggles right now. He is coming to Indianapolis. He was a career 74% guy from longer than 50 yards. In Indy, these last two seasons, he's been 53% from north of 50. Now, and again, theoretically, you're kicking indoors.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Of your games. The league average over the last 2 years, 70%. So again, Gay is 53%. The league average is 70%. And this year alone, the league is 75% from north of 50.
I hate to do this, KB, but, okay, so Anthony Richardson has struggled. I mean, some of his numbers, his turnovers, his completion percentage, it says that he's not a starting quarterback in the NFL. Now, we understand that, there are circumstances around it. He hasn't played much football. He's a young player. He didn't get to have quite the offseason that we thought. By the way, he didn't have the offseason to get ready is not something we talked about until he really, really struggled this season. But there are reasons and there are circumstances that lead you that way. But when we talk about underperforming players on this team, is Matt Gay at the top of the list? I mean, he is near the top of the list, if not at the top of the list. And I
think he's at it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know what you do here. If you're Shane Steichen, you like to go for it on fourth down as well. He played for a field goal in what he thought was going to be kind of a low-scoring game there on Sunday, and that didn't work out. Everyone says the right thing. Well, Matt Gay's our kicker, and he is, because you're not going to have a bunch of dead money. You're not going to be carrying multiple place kickers on Sunday. That would be funny if you did. Here's the problem. If it's a linebacker, we kind of know the protocol if a player is struggling, what we go through. But kickers are different. So I don't know what the protocol is with Matt Gay. I don't know what they can do with Matt Gay.
If Matt Gay was making Kevin Bowen money, would he be kicking Sunday in Jacksonville?
We would. Here's what it would be.
And by the way, I asked that in all seriousness.
No, it's a fair question.
I really think his contract is a massive reason why he is still kicking on Sunday.
Oh, I think massive reason. It's 100%. I mean, it is the reason.
So none of that track record does matter. He's kicked in a Super Bowl. He has been over 70. I don't want to ignore the resume. I mean, there is a reason why the Colts gave him the amount of money that they did. And 74% from north of 70 or north of 50 yards. That's a very respectable number.
Sure it is.
So, like, he did some stuff with the Rams that obviously led to the Colts bringing him here for the significant contract. But when Joel Erickson joins us here in less than an hour, that's a question I'll ask Joel. Like, does he feel like the contract is why Matt Gay's kicking here?
Here's what I think it is.
And a little bit of the resume. I guess.
Yeah, here's what I think it is. I think that the contract makes it a conversation that is almost not worth having. But if he didn't have the contract, our wanting to toss him aside would absolutely be a conversation that would have validity. Because of the contract, we can sit here and complain and moan about Matt Gay, but I mean, he's going to have to miss a bunch of he's going to have to continue to do what he's doing, but be even worse in big moments, like lose games for the Colts for them to do anything. I think
he's got to start missing short kicks for to really look there and have to say, hey, we're going to swallow whatever the $6 million, whatever the dead cap hit is.
I mean, Steichen sounds a little perturbed by it at this point. I think they've done a good job through the offseason and late last season and even early this season, saying all the right things, knowing that it's not physical, that it's mental, saying all the right things, and then eventually it's like, come on, dude, you got to go out there and you got to kick the football. If I play for a 50-yard field goal in a low-scoring game where I have a backup we have a 40-year-old Joe Flacco at quarterback against a good defense, and I can't rely on you to go out there and kick a 50-yard field goal, that's a problem. It's a huge problem.
Here was Shane Steichen yesterday on his kicker.
I mean, Matt's our kicker. He's been doing it for a long time. Obviously, he missed the kick yesterday, and he knows he's got to make those going forward, but he is our kicker.
Does he have to make those going forward?
I think that in Shane's lingo, that's
pissed off.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would agree with you.
Are you surprised the Colts are a 2.5-point underdog? Jags the only winless team in the league. Trevor Lawrence has looked very poor.
Oh, he's looked terrible.
They have lost, is it 9 in a row with Lawrence as the starting quarterback?
They've lost 9 in a row, going all the way back to, I think, 2 days after Thanksgiving.
C.J. Beathard, last one to start for them.
Correct, and it was over the Carolina Panthers like the second or third to final week of the year. It was 26-0. I looked it up. So they have lost the 9 straight. Well, I think you have a couple things. I think you have people don't respect the Colts right now. The Colts are extremely injured. And you throw in Anthony Richardson.
So is Jacksonville?
You throw in Jonathan Taylor. Jacksonville was close to that. It sounds silly. They were close to a win. Am I surprised?
Jacksonville could be without their top 3 defenders on Sunday.
Am I surprised? Maybe a little bit. I don't know. But you do get 3 at home. So they're saying, basically the Colts have wiped away the home field advantage. I mean, that's another way to look at it. I don't know. I mean, that's, This game might have how many injuries? What are the injury reports on this game going to look like between these two teams? It's Pro Bowlers everywhere going to be out of this game.
The other Josh Allen, who changed his name, right? Josh Hines Allen, is that correct?
Hines Allen, yeah.
He has wrecked some of these recent Colts-Jags meetings. You try to find like constants and like, wait, how have the Colts lost 9 in a row in Jacksonville/London? Josh Hines Allen, I should say, is one of those reasons. Like, he's been just such a thorn in the side of the Colts. Concussion protocol for him during that Houston game. So his status obviously very much up in the air there without their leading tackler, their version of Zaire Franklin, their top corner who Shane Steichen didn't want to throw his way week 1 last year, Tyson Campbell, and then they did throw his way in the final drive and it was picked. He is out as well. So, yes, injuries on both sides of it, but I am surprised. I'm surprised to see, and I guess I don't know, like Richardson's health, I'm kind of torn on it.
I know. Is it a good thing or bad thing?
Like, does Vegas view that? How do they view it?
I know Vegas. I thought Vegas would view Flacco as a better option. Quite frankly, I think the majority of people looking at the Colts view Joe Flacco as a better option.
Well,
from the outside,
I don't know if I'm ready to go fully there, but like a limited Anthony Richardson is a different story. I mean, if he has physical issues, abdominal, oblique, hip, whatever, we'll talk to Will Carroll here in a little over an hour about it. But like if his, and let's go off of a Madden rating. Is Anthony Richardson a 90 and running on Madden?
Oh, at least. I bet he is.
So if he's now 72 in Madden running on Sunday, and if his throwing power, shows you how long I've it's been since I've played Madden. If his arm strength is a 98 and now it's an 81, that's a little different quarterback.
No, you're right. They still do the same ratings.
Do they do
it's
that?
Still similar ratings. You can create your own player and make yourself a Superman. Don't worry about
NCAA
that.
98 was only like throwing power and throwing accuracy.
Man, oh man, you are old. I mean, not old. I mean, it's been a while, I should say, since you played.
Anthony Richardson is an overall 72 in Madden 25. He's got a speed of 91.
Wait, he's only a 72 overall?
Yeah, that's what it says.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And it updates. The thing is, it updates every week.
His throwing power is 96.
So you were pretty close on those.
You were spot on your ratings. Look at you.
Okay, take the speed down 20, take the arm strength down, I don't know, 10 or 15. And
now he's like a 68 overall.
Yeah, that's not good then.
If he's a 72 overall, what's Flacco?
Flacco's a 61, I'm guessing.
Yeah, let me see
65.
61?
66. That's what I'm going to go with. 66.
Man, I guess they've gotten a little
Joe
more
Flacco
critical.
is a 72.
Okay, never mind.
Oh,
He's a
they're even.
72. They're even.
So we should have this debate, Richardson or Flacco.
How many backup quarterbacks are even in Madden with their starting quarterback? By the way,
Joe Flacco.
Go ahead.
I was just going to throw this one in there. Joe Flacco did start last year against Jacksonville. You know, he didn't play a ton with Cleveland and had a big day. 300-plus yards, 3 touchdowns in a win over the Jags. So I don't know if anybody cares on that, but something to know.
I was consuming some Cleveland, stuff because they're one of the most pathetic franchises right now in the NFL. We can do my misery index later on in the 9 o'clock hour, and it is so Cleveland Browns, them whining about I wish we would have kept Joe Flacco.
I thought Watson was good last week, was he not?
It doesn't matter. Yeah, but
that contract is still just an albatross.
Yeah, he still makes 2 or 3 plays a game where you're like, what happened to you? How did you become the worst player? Well, how did you become the worst player in the NFL because of massages?
If you want
That's what everyone wants to know.
We can get into a whole lot on
his
that.
muscles weren't getting loosened enough.
Yeah, I guess so. Rick Carlisle, the season is upon us. What does he see with this team? Our Tuesdays with Rick, we'll do it next year. 8 o'clock hour around the corner, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
The Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
We got some ticket giveaways, some big ones here on this Tuesday morning. We'll do that here in a bit. Wonder if that song is a little hint at anything there. But it is Tuesday. It is 8 o'clock. The month of October is here. That means our weekly conversations with Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle starting back up. I'd like to say that Marcus Freeman gave him a game ball on Saturday as well for being the difference in that effort in winning over the Louisville Cardinals, and the Pacers head coach joins us now. Rick, good morning to you. Thank you for the time.
Yeah, hey, what's happening?
How was South Bend? I love the pictures. Looked like a little Sheamus action. My favorite picture might have been you with the band.
Yeah, we were running around getting pictures with everybody, and it's quite a scene, as you're well aware. There, it's the first time I've been to a football game there, and the tradition is, the place, you can smell the tradition, and we had a really special experience because they gave us a lot of access and stuff, and a lot of great people, and maybe the most memorable thing about the whole thing was that every time the other team has a third down, the scoreboard gets revved up, the PA guy, I think they have as good a PA guy as I've ever heard there.
Coach, how much of a football fan are you?
You can smell the tradition. Did you hear that, Andy? That's what he said. You can smell the tradition.
I've been there. How much of a football fan are you, Coach?
Yeah, I like football. Yeah. I mean, Andy, just because they beat Louisville's ass, sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Keep on going there.
Yeah, keep on going.
Coach, I am curious, when you go to these games, again, for what it's worth, I thought it looked like more of just a fun experience before the season getting started for you. But, when you talk with these coaches, are you, trying to get, insight, intel that anything you take back to your team? Or is this more of a, no, I'm just here to, cross off something off the bucket list?
Well, in this particular case, a couple of my friends from Cirrus Aircraft helped arrange the trip. So myself and one of them flew from Indy Exec, which was an 18-minute flight in a Vision Jet, and that was awesome. And then the other one picked up my brother and brother-in-law, who are the two biggest Notre Dame fans. Kevin, I would say even bigger than you.
Wow.
And flew them in the morning of the game, and then flew them back to Northern New York State after the game. So we had a really special experience, and it was great. And then what I just try to absorb all of it, and there are certain things that you may take away from it that maybe useful things to talk to your team about at some point in the near future or in the future. And so I just I kind of just keep a log of all that stuff and enjoy the experience.
Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Pacers, it's got around the corner, 7 days away. Tuesday, October 8th, the preseason begins there in Atlanta for the Pacers. Coach, yesterday was media day, and I was listening to some sound and some good stuff, some candid stuff from Tyrese Halliburton. And one thing that Halliburton said was, he said during the game, and I'm paraphrasing, I think I'm playing good defense, and then we go back and we watch film, and I'm out of place, and I'm not playing the kind of defense that I want to play. You couple that with the Olympic stuff that he went through, and he seems reinvigorated on becoming a better defender. What is Halliburton's ceiling, do you think, defensively?
Well, we have a system, and so everybody has a job within the system. One thing that Tyrese, he's done a lot of great things since he's been here, but since he arrived here, I guess it was 2.5 years ago, he's gained a lot of muscle mass on his body, even though he's very slender. He's gained like 15 to 17 pounds of muscle. His strength has gone up, certainly. And look, the NBA is all of a sudden, as of the middle of last year, become a much more physical game. And so within our defensive system, everybody has a job. And his job, along with everyone else, is to do their part within the system. And it's the old axiom of, a chain is only as strong as its individual links hold together or whatever, however you want to say it. But he had I thought he had great experience in the playoffs, because in the playoffs they come after your best players. They attack them with all kinds of ball screening actions and trying to get switches and isos and all that. And he really fought his butt off, and I thought he made great strides. It was unfortunate that he missed the last 2 games against Boston. That could have been a different story there. But he got healthy for the Olympics. He was hanging around with some of the greatest players in the history of the game, seeing what makes those guys tick and how they operate, and spending time and cataloging stuff that they're having conversations about. And this is another opportunity this year. We know after last year we're not sneaking up on anybody, but that's fine. And I sense the guys are hungry, but one of the jobs of the head coach and the coaching staff is to make sure that we keep the whole thing on edge, and keep everybody competing.
That voice, it's Tuesday at 8. Rick Carlisle with us here on the Wake Up Call. Pacers training camp beginning today, their first preseason game. Pretty crazy to think a week from tonight. Rick, you told a story yesterday at Media Day about a team get-together at Chad Buchanan's house. I think it was over the weekend or here recently. And I guess it was a little bit of, individual players kind of sharing off-season stories with their respective teammates. For our audience here that didn't hear that, could you kind of share what that was about? Because I thought it was pretty cool.
Well, I don't want to get into too much private stuff, but in those meetings, those preseason meetings, for me, those have evolved over the years. I mean, this is my 23rd as a head coach, so, there's been quite a few of them. Some years they're very informal. Some years, we don't even have a formal get-together at someone's house or a restaurant or something like that. But the last couple we've been at Chad's house. He's got a gymnasium in his basement, which is pretty cool. And so I talk about some things. We put some things on the board, some statistics, some factual stuff. I really don't find that these, for me, are motivational things anymore, but these are just kind of factual things that, here's where we are, based upon prognostication, and we've got to identify what the separators are for us. Because if you look at it, this league is deeper than it's ever been. I mean, there are 18 teams, and you can make a case there are 18 teams up there that have a chance. And if some bounces go their way and health is in their favor, that could make deep playoff runs and get to the finals and possibly win the championship. And so, last year, we got the sixth spot in the East on a tiebreaker. And it was, there were a lot of really big games down the stretch. I mean, the home game against Miami, there was a game against Philly that was, a couple, 3 weeks before the end of the season. We had to beat Oklahoma City twice, to be able to get where we were. And so in these meetings, I think it's important that a lot of voices are heard and a lot of views are heard. I asked Andrew Nemhard to talk about his Team Canada experience, playing for his country, for the first time. He did that. Ben Matherin talked about being away from the game and having the injury and having basically having the game taken away from him for 200 days. I mean, and what that meant and what he saw from afar. TJ McConnell, I asked him to be ready to say a few words, and interestingly, I didn't know what he was going to talk about, but he talked about something that was really relevant and really important, and that was that at the beginning of last year, it appeared that he was going to be out of the rotation, he and I had to talk about it, and it was one of the most difficult you can possibly have. And then in game 2, we go to Cleveland and we get down 15 or 17 in the first quarter, and it's time to get TJ in there and try to change things up a little bit. And he went in there, and by the end of the first quarter, we had it down to like a 4-point game or something like that, and he played great. And from then on, you find a way to get this guy in the rotation. And what he said to the guys was that, look, whatever happens, we got a lot of depth on this team. This is one of the reasons we had success last year. If you fall out of it for some reason, stay with it, keep fighting, keep competing, and keep being there for your team. And things have a way of coming around. And I thought that was a reverential thing to say, given the situation. And then Tyrese talked about USA basketball experience, winning the gold at the Olympics. Pascal talked a little bit about, championship experience back in 19. And then, the last guy that said a few words was a guy that I thought most people may have been the most happy for last year, and that was Miles Turner. I mean, the guy's 9 years and never got out of the first round of the playoffs, and then finally was with a team that made a run to the conference finals, and what that meant to him, and what he knows that we have to continue to do to have that kind of success. So, it was great, and look, a lot of that stuff is just words, but I like getting people on record talking about things, and then you can refer back to it. And we're all in it together. It's a massive fight in the NBA now. It's become a hard play league. As I mentioned, it's going to be much more physical this year. Games are going to look a lot more like FIBA than the old freedom of movement NBA, and so we've got to be ready for that.
Rick Carlisle with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Listen, I was going to ask you about Benedict Mathurin, and then I thought I might follow up with some Turner conversation, but I want to go to where you just ended. You think it's going to be more physical, more of what we see in the FIBA style. Why do you think that's going to be the case? As the NBA puts something out officiating-wise, why do you think that's the case?
Well, we sat in the head coaches meeting 3 weeks ago, and they told us it was going to be that way. And
fair enough. There you go.
And showed us video of it, and we're very matter of fact about it, and so that's where things are. And look, the reasons. I mean, I can think of some obvious reasons. Too many teams were just marching to the free throw line, one after the other. Games were getting long and arduous. People want to see continuous action, and I'm in favor of it. I mean,
okay.
I'm in favor of a more physical game. Why not?
Again, Rick Carlisle is with us here. It's Tuesday. It's 8 o'clock. Pacers getting things started with their first training camp practice coming up later. Coach, we'll have plenty of time to get to individual players, I think, throughout our convos. But I wanted to make sure that I hit on this. J.J. Redick spoke here recently about his first head coaching endeavor, taking that Lakers job, and he singled you out for, and I hope I'm not putting words in J.J.'s mouth, but kind of like sparking or maybe igniting that desire to want to be a coach one day. Do you recall those conversations that you had with him and what kind of led to this path where now he is certainly a head coach of one of the more iconic franchises around?
Yeah, I mean, this has been a bit overplayed, I think, a bit overdone. We got to a point in 2021 where, we traded for JJ, and he's a great veteran player. He had great practice habits. He had a great team vibe, all that stuff. He played well in the games that he played in, and then he had this Achilles thing that just prevented him from going on any further, and his career essentially ended. But he was around every day, and we had a lot of conversations about a lot of things. And I had mentioned at one point, have you ever thought about coaching? There are things that here are the things about it that you would probably find compelling, but we didn't have long, drawn-out conversations about it. I do recall that after we talked about it some, he became much more interested in our strategy going into the playoffs that year. We played the Clippers, and we lost in 7 games, but it was a fascinating series. The first 6 games, the home team never won. And then the Clippers had Game 7 at home, and they won Game 7. So he was very much into the adjustments. There were a lot of really interesting things going on in that series. We ended up playing Boban Marjanovic. He started the last 3 or 4 games. We had a front line of him at center at 7'6", and Porzingis at 4 at 7'3", and it had to be one of the biggest starting lineups in the history of basketball. But JJ is a guy that is obviously very intelligent. He's gonna figure things out, regardless of what he does. I mean, he became a star in the media, with his podcast and on ESPN, and I know he's going to take this coaching thing very seriously.
Rick, as we wrap up here on this Tuesday morning, as always, can't thank you enough. And I did want to make sure we mention last week you held a press conference over at the Frederick Douglass Family Center. Beautiful site here just northeast of downtown. And it is kind of the second iteration of your drive-in dish initiative here to help out our neighborhoods in Marion County and the food insecurities that are. The numbers are pretty staggering that you shared of 25 to 30% of Marion County dealing with food insecurities, and a huge contribution coming from the top of the organization, I know, and certainly you and I know Fred Glass over at Gleaners have helped kind of spearhead this effort. So for our audience out there that maybe doesn't know the full info on that, could you share a little bit more on why this was something that you really wanted to be a part of here as you came back to the Indiana and Indianapolis community?
Well, thanks for asking. It took a little while to figure out what the greatest needs were in the Indy area. During 2020 and the bubble, the head coaches mobilized and got involved in organizational things, both in their individual cities and nationally, with My Brother's Keeper with President Obama's foundation. And so every city is different. That's one thing I learned at that time. And as I looked at more things, Corey Wilson, who is the Executive VP of Community Engagement, has been super helpful with this. We identified food insecurity. As you mentioned, 25 to 30% of people in Marion County are affected. Over 1 million people in the state of Indiana are affected. And it's not that there isn't food. The biggest problem are the logistics to bring the food to the people that need it. And so this second iteration of Drive and Dish is very exciting because Herb Simon and Steve Rails, our principal owner and our minority owner, put up a donation of over $10 million to make this program sustainable for the foreseeable future, and also to expand it out to other towns. I believe we're going to expand to Terre Haute, Bloomington. I think Muncie's one of them. And there's one other one. And instead of 16,000 boxes of food which we delivered this past year, next year will be upwards of 33,000 boxes of food, and it will be done in a way that is discreet and with dignity. It will be done through an app, which will make it much more efficient and much easier for families to access. So really appreciate you asking about this. You go to Pacers.com and look up the Pacers Foundation Drive and Dish if you want to contribute. It's a really great program. It's got a lot of momentum, and we will look forward to charging ahead with it.
Well, Coach, we thank you so much for not only coming on with us, but that program and spearheading that and getting the community to rally about that. We put up on the wake-up call. Mark just retweeted all of that information. So that's some really, really good stuff in the community. We'll get out of here with this, and Rick Carlisle with us on the Payless Liquors hotline. Coach, I'm sure you know February 8th in Lucas Oil, Sting and Billy Joel are going to be in town. Are you more of a Sting or Billy Joel? And do you happen to have a favorite song? Because here's what we're going to do. If you have a favorite song, Coach, later in the show, Mark Dykton is going to play that song as bumper music, and whoever calls in is going to get 2 tickets to the concert in February. So a lot is riding on this, is what I'm trying to tell you. Do you have a favorite song, Billy Joel or Sting? What you got for us?
Well, I love them both. And interestingly, I'm a novice piano player, as you guys may be aware. And the way I keep track of songs that I know is I have a playlist on my phone, and I've got a Sting song and I've got 1 or 2 Billy Joel songs. So, I mean, look, the obvious Billy Joel song is Piano Man. I mean, that's an all-time classic. But there are others, and So It Goes is a great song. With Sting, I've got the song. I think it's called "The Hounds of Winter," which is a song from somewhere in the '90s, but it's a really cool song. But anyway, I'm going to. I don't know if we play that night or what, but Billy Joel's piano guy is a guy that I've gotten friendly with over the years, and I actually had a chance to meet Billy several years ago, and so. If it's an off night at home, I'll be hitting my friend Wayne Williams up and trying to get some tickets.
It's not, Coach. You're in L.A.
Oh, that's brutal.
You're
That's
facing,
the end of a road trip.
You're facing J.J. Redick that night. You're in L.A. facing the Lakers and LeBron. Sorry. Well, it's a 4 o'clock game, so yeah, you couldn't even get back because of the time difference. Sorry, Coach.
Oh well.
Well, we will play one of those songs here coming up shortly and give away a pair of tickets coming up again February 8th. At Lucas Oil. Coach, great to hear your voice. Great to see you last week. Thanks certainly for delivering that Irish victory on Saturday, and we really look forward to these Tuesday conversations. I know how much our audience absolutely loved hearing you last year, and really appreciate you doing this again.
All right, thanks, guys. Take care.
That's Rick Carlisle right here on Tuesday, October 1st. Again, training camp begins today. First preseason game a week from tonight, and as always, these Rick Carlisle conversations, they just lead to things that I find super interesting. And I would say the one that you followed up on, Andy Sweeney, of expect a little bit more physicality allowed in the NBA this season. That is a really, really interesting tidbit from Rick Carlisle today.
You know, it's interesting, and I don't know exactly what's happening in the NFL, but, we've talked about it through the first month of the season with scoring being down. Now, last night, some of the scoring last night, especially in that Lions-Seattle game, did not fit the mold. But, we have seen, I guess I feel like we've seen a tad of a resurgence on defense in the NFL, and I wonder if we're going to see a tad of a resurgence on defense and just overall physicality, and we're not going to allow James Harden to jump into somebody and get
to shoot 20 free throws a game.
I think there's something to that. Now, I wonder if he'll go too far, and you get a month or two into the season, and they change things around. Rick talked, I remember with us, how he thought later in the year games were officiated totally different than they were. So that happens anyway. But I did not know that they had the coaches there 3-4 weeks ago, whatever he said, and they said, hey, we're going to have a little bit more physical basketball. Just last thing on that for me, on the FIBA side, I always think it takes our guys a little bit to get used to that because they're not used to it.
Yeah, FIBA is a football game on a basketball court. I mean, that's how I watch the Olympics, and that's the feeling I get. I mean, how many times did the Americans, frankly, look at the refs like, wait a minute, no?
Yeah.
Or even like Jokic. Yeah. He would look at the officials at times and be like, wait, that's not getting a call here. So I think I like that, but I'll be curious to see how it unfolds. Again, Rick Carlisle every Tuesday with us. You can smell the tradition. You hear that?
Okay.
You can smell the tradition, is what Rick Carlisle said about
I heard it.
Notre Dame, Indiana.
Did he think I was rooting for Louisville to win that game? I mean, come on, I'm betting on Notre Dame, and Mark has Notre Dame bets.
I think you were.
I had Louisville +10, so that worked out. That late touchdown.
Mark's got teasers.
He did throw a little Louisville jab in.
He did. He threw a jab at me.
Kicked their ass. Was that the exact phrase?
He said it 3 minutes in. That's exactly what he said. I want to bring up one thing just for a second before we get to a check down. Reminder: Joel A. Erickson going to join us in 6 or 7 minutes. Your quick thoughts on the Karl Anthony Towns trade, Julius Randle?
That's a big
dude, that's a big trade that, because we're in the middle of the NFL season, is not being talked about nearly as much as it probably should be.
I think I just put Rosie down, and all of a sudden I start to climb into bed. I'm like, wait, that just happened? And then I'm like, well, I can't go to sleep, so I stayed up and watched the end of that Miami-Virginia Tech game, which I was very happy I did. And then I needed like 20 minutes to process
it was a good game.
That trade. I was like, is this a good thing for the Knicks? I mean, I guess it opens the floor. It brings,
Right. Well, Towns is better than Randall. I think people think Towns is better than Randall.
Yeah, but
by how much, though?
Does Towns fit Thibodeau? I mean, is that Knicks culture?
Well, they hated each other.
Is he Hartenstein? I mean, like,
supposedly they've made kind a number. Here's from listening and reading. They've made kind a number of years ago. And Julius Randle was just missing so much time due to injury. He was kind of an enigma there. Like,
I think DiVincenzo's a big loss.
I thought so too.
I don't know.
I'm with you. That's where I'm
one
at.
where I'm like, I really like what the Knicks were looking like about a week or two ago. And I get it. Center-wise, it was a question. Mitchell Robinson's battled injuries. Like, that's definitely a question that they had. But that could be a little bit just like you're trying too much there, almost, if that makes sense. Now, again, a healthy Towns, he's an unbelievable gifted scorer and a great talent, et cetera, et cetera. But the missing ingredient to me was a little bit more dirty work center, not like
finesse center.
Yeah, who has battled some injuries, too. It's not like he's been a perfect bill of health.
Towns is really good. I think Dante is the odd man out when you go get Mikal Bridges. I mean, I think that's a question. I thought Dante DiVincenzo was one of the heartbeats, along with Josh Hart, of their team, part of the pun in the playoffs. I mean, Dante was in everyone's face, the crowd's face, Halliburton's face, and everything else. I find what will be interesting, the Knicks and a guy like Brunson are seen as a tough, rugged team, right? I mean, that's the way they want to portray themselves there in New York with the Knicks. Karl Anthony Towns does not have, unless I'm missing something, he does not have, what's the word I'm looking for? That's not how he is viewed in the NBA, as a tough player. I almost feel like other teams and other players, especially early in his career, tried to punk Karl Anthony Towns. So how he fits there, but he is a better player, I still would say, than Julius Randle. It was a marriage, and at times it was good, at times it was bad. It was always kind of back and forth. He'd been on the trade block, I feel like, for the last 2 or 3 seasons.
Coming up on Sunday, the Pacers will have their fan jam, their annual fan jam, noon on Sunday. Rick mentioned yesterday that will be a pretty intense, practice, really, scrimmage. They'll bring in some NBA officials for that, so that's coming up noon on Sunday for those looking to do something. Again, Colts Jags kicking off at 1. All right, again, Will Carroll coming up at 9 to talk injury situation for the Colts. Joel A. Erickson in a few. Let's go ahead and hit a morning checkdown.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Marian University Football, pursuing another NAIA championship this season. Don't miss the on-campus action at Ascension St. Vincent Field. Visit NUnites.com for tickets.
Yeah, we'll get to the 2 games on Monday night. Last night, so Monday Night Football, as we wrapped up Week 4 of the NFL season. But as always, let's start with the Colts. Shane Steichen yesterday was on last night. You heard it right here on the Fan Colts Roundtable. He was asked by, I've been almost calling Matt Taylor Matt Adams all morning, and I have no idea why I want to call him Matt Adams. Didn't he play for the St. Louis Cardinals, Mark? If I'm not mistaken, Matt Adams.
There was a Colts linebacker named Matt Adams.
How does the playbook change if Flacco is the starter? Here's what Steichen had to say.
Yeah, obviously you're going to lose some of the quarterback run stuff.
Right.
The pass game stuff obviously was in, and obviously they can both do the pass game, so the pass game, but obviously we had to adjust some run game stuff, and I thought our coaches, Jim, Bob, and Tony, and Tommy, and the rest of those guys, and DeAndre did a hell of a job on the sideline communicating things throughout the game that we had to get going there in that second, third, fourth quarter.
So, again, it is now being reported as an abdominal oblique injury for Anthony Richardson. We'll see about his status through this week. Will Carroll will touch more on that when he joins us coming up at 9. Colts are an underdog here in Week 5 against the last winless team in the NFL. That would be the Jags, 2.5 points. The reason why Jacksonville is the last winless team, because the Titans won last night. You're going to see 31 points listed next to the Titans' name. Don't think this was some offensive explosion. They had 110 combined passing yards from Will Levis and Mason Rudolph. Levis exited early with a horrific interception and a very Will Levis-type injury, AC joint sprain. So Rudolph then finished the rest of the game. For what it's worth, Brian Callahan afterwards said Levis is still their quarterback. They do have a bye week before the Colts next week, so we'll see what the status is there. But, boy, things right now in Miami. Woo, woo, woo.
Mason Rudolph, top 5 punchable face in the NFL. I've said that.
Gosh,
well,
I always think he looks like Field Yates a little bit.
I thought people felt that way about Levis.
Levis, do the Titans have 2 of the top 5? Levis, will he be in the NFL in 3 years?
No, boy. Yeah.
As a backup, maybe.
I mean, he is such a backup, and I'm not even. Boy, I could see him fizzle right out of the league.
That interception last night.
He's not good.
Lions, big offensive night for them. Jared Goff did not have an incompletion, 18 of 18, and caught a touchdown.
Not good for him.
42-29 over the Seahawks, previously undefeated.
Another reason I was happy there was a Monday night doubleheader, because that Dolphins
Again, I'm all about the Monday night doubleheaders. We will not get them moving forward,
I thought it was going to be
there's 2 more. It's week 7 and week 15, but
right
it's a
now,
while.
Until the bye weeks start back up. Bye weeks, I should say, start up this week. Once those end here coming up in December, we'll get back into the double header Monday nights.
All right, so the Mets and Braves split. They both made the playoffs last night. Tuesday schedule today. You have Astros hosting the Tigers at 2:30 on ABC. Baltimore and KC, 4 o'clock on ESPN2. Mets on the road in Milwaukee at 5:30 on ESPN. And Atlanta and San Diego, that one 8:30 on ESPN. Tentatively with those, I think I'm going Houston, KC, Mets, and San Diego. I think that's the way I'm going, but, does it really matter? I don't know.
I was going to say,
yeah,
I'll let you go there.
Does it matter what I predict
if I
on
try
Major
to give
League
my baseball predictions, I'm like, might as well just throw a dart at a dartboard.
You want my fake takes on baseball?
Do want to mention this quickly here before we get Joel Erickson. Lara Overton shared this yesterday. Awesome to see this from Kenny Moore. Amid some of the devastation in that Valdosta, Georgia area, certainly Georgia, North Carolina, that part of the country, big time. Kenny and his Love One Foundation have teamed up with local businesses to serve over 1,000 hot meals to those left without food, water, and essential items. Kenny's mom, Angela, among those serving their neighbors down there following, obviously, Hurricane
That's good for them.
Helene.
That's
so
good.
great stuff from Kenny Moore and his family.
Man, some of the stuff I've seen from people I know in North Carolina is just absolutely it's just unbelievable. So, again, appreciate Rick Carlisle joining us. You miss any of that, check it out, Podcast Center, 1075thefan.com. Coming up after the break, what should the Colts do with Matt Gay and the latest on Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson? Joel A. Erickson from the Star, he joins us next.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Was he singing off air to this song? Joel Erickson, do you know this tune?
Kind of.
Come on, what kind of fan is that?
What would you call this? Is this the
called Brewer
the Brewers
Fever.
fight song?
The Brewers fight song since 1979.
So after the mascot goes down the slide, is this what they play?
They don't play it much in the stadium anymore. Like the roll out the barrel is probably the one that
Come on, Mark.
Hero was trying to be a good person.
Mark was trying to do something
Yeah,
nice to Joel.
trying to help out. Freddie Peralta, game 1, 5:30 today.
And
the kids are home. Joel's got a multitask, and Joel just rains on Mark's
Joel just
parade.
peed on my leg.
I do appreciate it though. I've moved past the hey, it was a fun regular season that no one saw coming optimism and into the crushing nerves of there's a playoff game today.
Gosh, playoff baseball does that to you, does it not?
Well, Joel,
Oh
the beauty is if there was ever a team and a fan base that could choke and it would be funny, it'd be the Mets. To watch the Mets choke, that's always fun. Their fans are usually pretty level-headed.
I know, but the thing is, though, they're not in choke position.
I know.
They get to play the we're tired, no one believes in us card. I don't like that.
Yeah, that is a good point. Yeah, that was wild yesterday how all that unfolded. Joel Erickson, diehard Brewers fan, game 1 coming up 5:30 today. He obviously covers the Colts for the Star. He joins us here. Joel, I guess I'll leave it rather open-ended on the Anthony Richardson front. What did you make of the injury situation on Sunday? And as we sit here Tuesday morning, your eyes are where on this situation headed into Week 5?
I think the biggest thing is he could have slid. That's the thing that jumped to my head when you said, leaving it open-ended. Like, it was a 16-yard carry. He already had the first down. I know he was worried about them delivering a blow anyway, but I mean, he could have slid. There was room, and Justin Fields, I thought, did a good job on Sunday of getting down when he needed to get down. Kind of a player who's kind of probably been through this. I haven't watched a ton of Justin Fields in his time in Chicago, but I know I have friends who are Bears fans who said that he used to never get down at all. He obviously did a good job. Maybe this is just a young player developing, but also, this is the conversation that was coming in, and that was a situation where he just didn't necessarily need to take the hit that he ended up taking.
Yeah, and he took a big hit at that. Now, we know the last couple days, yesterday and Sunday, what the Colts and Shane Steichen have said. What are your thoughts? I know you wrote about this. What are your thoughts on what happened on the sideline? He didn't immediately go into the blue tent. He came back out, had that disastrous RPO, which he got hit yet again. Just what do you think happened? Perhaps a lack of communication. What do you think happened on the sideline with Anthony Richardson on Sunday?
Well, it sounds like, and I didn't have, I wasn't in Shane Steichen's press conference because I was talking to the referees. So I don't have any insight into his inflection or anything. But it sounds like it was the conversation was, hey, are you good to go? Richardson said, hey, I'm good to go. And Steichen was like, okay, if he's good to go, we can call whatever. And then Richardson gets out there and tries to push off, and it doesn't feel the right way. And he goes down, which I think played a role in them not putting him back in later. But there was also a little piece of it in Anthony Richardson's press conference that's kind of been nagging at me. We didn't get to it yesterday because we were asking more about the injuries itself and the future. But there's a part of Anthony Richardson's press conference where he said something along the lines of, "I wanted to go back in, and coach just thought it wasn't the best idea." And so I assume they've worked all that out. But it did seem to me like Anthony Richardson was trying to go back in the game once he came back out of the tunnel.
Yeah, I mean, they don't let him wear his helmet if not, right? I mean, isn't that kind of NFL protocol?
Yeah, I would have thought, well, and just the way the helmet is one thing, but just the way he came running out of the tunnel. He's doing all these stretches. He's picking up his knee. He's bending. He's moving side to side. He actually went back into the huddle at one point
in that little scenario, and then Flacco went back in. It seemed like Richardson wanted to finish that game, and the Colts decided not to. Which, you always hear about teams like you have to protect the player from themselves. Maybe that's what that was. We've got to protect him from, because Shane Steichen said yesterday. I thought the real, Shane doesn't say a ton about injuries, but he said obviously not a huge injury. I thought that was the one sort of indicator or newsworthy piece that he said yesterday, that at least when he talked to us yesterday, they weren't expecting this to get worse. Otherwise, I don't think he would have said that. So I just thought that maybe this was their idea of going, hey, it's not a huge injury. We don't want it to become one and get back to where we were last year.
Yeah, NFL lingo, I think we're in day-to-day mode, not week-to-week, which is certainly good news on the Anthony Richardson front. He's a man that will rain on the old Brewers fight song if needed. Game 1 is here. Joel A. Erickson with us on the Payless Liquors hotline. Joel, if Matt Gay were making Spencer Schrader money, would he be without a job right now?
Oh, that's a great question. If he doesn't have the track record, I think that there's probably a move being made, kickers being worked out, that kind of thing. Yeah. The track record got him the money, and then now that he's got the guaranteed money, you bet on the track record of him getting back and starting to kick well. But it's a very good point. That's 5 misses now early in the season. I think with a much less established kicker, we're not in this spot. Interestingly enough, I think I haven't seen what happened with this, but I know the Bills are sort of in a similar spot with Tyler Bass, where he's been a guy who's kicked for them for a long time. He's struggling now, and the same thing is going on. Like, people are saying, like, isn't this the kind of thing you move on from? And they're going, well, this is a guy who's kicked well before, so we expect him to come back.
I think you tweeted out yesterday the Colts worked out several veteran cornerbacks. Do you think that's due diligence? Are you reading something Kenny Moore related into that, or just your average
cornerback safety types? Cornerback safety types. I think that it could be Kenny Moore related, although usually those come right away when they do that. I wonder if it was just we're not really playing that well from the Colts thinking we're not playing that well on the back end. Is there somebody who can help us? I think the safeties seem to be playing pretty well. They're not really giving up necessarily. I mean, they are giving up some explosive passes and just giving up some stuff over the middle, but they're at least making a few plays to make up for it. The cornerback position, outside of a couple of pass breakups from Sam Womack on Sunday, the cornerback position I didn't feel like had a great day against the Steelers. In fact, I think they had a pretty rough day against the Steelers. So I wonder if they're looking, hey, is there somebody else we can play here? Give Bradley and Ron Miles more options, because some of the names on that list were guys who, maybe they're not stars, but they're guys who've played before.
Joel A. Erickson with us from the Star on the Payless Liquors hotline on this Tuesday. Joel, got to go now and talk about Jonathan Taylor's same ankle, another ankle injury. You go back to 2022. You go back to last year, obviously. What do you make of that ankle? What does your gut tell you about Sunday?
Well, so he came back into the locker room. I think me and Stephen Holder were the only two guys still left in the locker room to talk to him on Sunday. And JT traditionally does not offer a whole lot of detail on his injuries, but he wasn't moving. Like the one thing I keep thinking about, he wasn't moving as gingerly as players sometimes are who are hurt afterwards. You can see a little bit, there's a little bit of an indicator, not a great indicator, because sometimes these guys recover way faster than you'd expect, but you can sometimes see guys kind of moving stiffly, struggling a little bit, or limping. It seemed like he was moving better than you'd expect. At the same time, I wonder if that history means maybe the Colts are more likely to go, okay, let's play this cautiously. It's not a bad sprain, but maybe we'll play this cautiously just to avoid going through what we went through last year. We'll just have to kind of see as the week goes, or the last 2 years, I mean, because they can't afford to have Jonathan Taylor get hurt seriously. That's pretty obvious at this point. He's fourth or fifth in the league in rushing. He's been really good the whole season. You just can't afford to lose him for a significant amount of time.
Joel, last one for me. And again, I don't know if it's really a question, but I just thought the Michael Pittman Jr. we saw on Sunday was really not the Michael Pittman Jr. we're used to at all. I mean, obviously he's earned a notable contract, but 6 catches for 113. I mean, that's a big play, Michael Pittman Jr. And again, that's a little different from him. So I know Josh Downs, who we had on yesterday, had a great game. But I also thought that was really important for Pittman Jr. with both quarterbacks to create the consistent chunk plays, especially after the quiet start that he's had to the year.
Yeah. The Michael Pittman Jr., who is kind of getting open in that 20 to 25 to 30 yard range, and then giving him chances to run after the catch. You know, we haven't seen some of that stuff in a while. That's a big deal, because I think the other thing is right now the hope going into the season was that the Colts were going to have Pierce and Mitchell as explosive play threats, and that would in theory keep defenses from focusing on either one of them. Well, right now Mitchell is struggling to produce, and so what you've got is teams can go, okay, where's 14? He's the one that's going to take the top off. It's harder to do that if you have other people making explosive plays, whether or not it looks the same way, whether or not it looks like, you know, Alec Pierce running on the go route, which Pittman in 2021 did a lot of that in the first half of the season, where Carson Wentz kind of just threw it up for him. We haven't seen him make those plays yet with Richardson, but maybe that's in the future. But even if it's just these, you know, 32, 28, that kind of thing, it's going to change defenses a little bit and make it, you know, either you have to let Pittman make this play, or maybe you have to take a little bit of attention away from Alec Pierce, and the next thing you know, they're going back to him for some more big plays that we've seen from him so far this season.
Joel, good luck.
The blood pressure during these playoff games, it's so high.
I know. I can't tell if I envy that or if I don't. Like, you know, it's been a while since the Reds have experienced playoff baseball, but I think I'm jealous of it.
Well,
but
you should be, yeah.
Part of me is like, wait, they're going to the bullpen again. Then I start getting too nervous, and I'm like, I'm glad my team's not in it.
As somebody who went through, as somebody whose team went through, like I was 22 before the Brewers made the playoffs at all in my fandom life. I would rather deal with the blood pressure in the playoffs.
I know.
Amen.
I'm trying to spin it in a positive
Yeah, I don't know
direction.
what KB's trying to do. Well, you know, it's better not to be in the playoffs. You don't have to worry about the blood pressure.
Such a pathetic comment
it
by
really
me.
is.
Joel, good luck to your Brewers. Thank you, sir. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll see you.
He brings up A.D. Mitchell. 13 targets for A.D. Mitchell. 2 catches on the season. That is a 15.4% catch rate. There's 182 receivers that have qualified in the NFL. I should say 182 pass catchers. You care to guess where that 15% catch rate ranks?
171. I'm just guessing. I have no idea.
182.
Oh. I was giving him the benefit of the doubt.
181 is 25%.
Yikes.
180 is 36%. So
Yikes.
he's like the worst. And again,
Wow.
there's some context around it.
Yes, there is.
Let me be clear. But it has been a rough start when targeting A.D. Mitchell.
Yeah, it's definitely not what we thought it was going to be. I may need you guys' help on something on the other side. I need an opinion from the room. We can do that. Will Haskett going to join us coming up at 9 o'clock. We got you to 10 o'clock right here, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Well, we had Rick Carlisle on earlier. Asked him for a Billy Joel or Sting favorites. He shared with us one of those songs. 317-239-1070. You want a pair of tickets? February 8th, Lucas Oil Stadium. Mark Dykton will take fast fingers here. 317-239-1070.
He's already taking calls.
1070.
That's a good thing. We need to do that. We'll have them all week.
We did warn the people about a half hour ago.
That's the point. You know, TSL, time spent listening. You got to get that up, and that's how you do it with some tickets. Speaking of music, you guys will like this. So did you see that Oasis, besides, them doing, shows over in London, whatever, did you see that they are doing a North American tour, KB?
No.
Well, they are. They're doing a North American tour. No, the closest they're coming is Chicago. I'm actually bummed they're not coming to Indianapolis. They're playing, stadiums, I think mostly. So they're playing at Soldier Field. Mark, I know he's on the phone. They're playing at Soldier Field. I have got the code to where I have entered.
Let's go.
To try to get tickets first to that. But
it's going to be a Ticketmaster disaster.
Well, here's the thing. They're not doing surge pricing, but that also means that you cannot resell your tickets for a ridiculous price. So there is a hook. So they're not doing surge pricing, but they are, if I get a $250 ticket, I can't go sell it for, $2,000 and make a bunch of money. So that's kind of the flip side to everything. And, I haven't even told the wife yet, but internally, how much do I pay for a ticket to go see Oasis, who I like? I'm not a super fan. I would like to see him. It's more of seeing something that potentially could be historic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I say you go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not going to, tap into your budget, but I say let's go.
I got a buddy who's like, I'll spend $600 a ticket, and I kind of feel like that might put me in the 500 section in Soldier Field.
Next August, is this right?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
I say you go full bore.
They go on
I've already
sale
thought
Friday.
that way about Notre Dame basketball in the Final Four in 2026. Did you see they got another top 100 kid yesterday?
I saw that.
Another one.
He looks like Aaron Goody.
I love that.
He looks just like Aaron Goody.
The more Aaron Gody's, the better.
I go, man, he didn't even. I go, Mike Bray's not here. Mike Bray's not coaching here. Why they get a guy that looks like Luke Herringody?
Build the Shrewsbury statue.
You're damn right. So, fun stuff there. The latest, what does it mean? Hip pointer, abdominal strain, got the oblique, and much more on Anthony Richardson. Will Haskett, he joins us next. 9 o'clock hour, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
A grade 2 takes 4 to 6 weeks. A grade 1 can be very, very small, notable but small, and that comes down to function. If you go out there and you keep doing things with that muscle, it's not going to heal up quite as quickly. If you overstress it again with a tear in it, that tear is going to come right back open. While it's healing itself, it does that with scar, just like anything else. It's not going to be as strong as it heals. So if you're out there doing the same things, making those hard twists, you're going to slow the healing process down. So with that, you can play through it, but there's risks to doing so.
That was going to be my follow-up. It sounds like you're saying you need to be 100% before Anthony goes back out there on the football field.
Nobody's ever 100% in football. So you need to be closer, and you need to understand the risk. Could this happen again? Yes. It could not happen again. He could be just fine. He could go out there, make one throw, and feel it and not be able to function. So it comes down to both function and how much risk are you willing to accept.
So this could limit his mobility and his throwing, like both of those facets to his game?
Yeah, with the abdominals and the obliques, especially obliques, any sort of twisting motion is going to be taxed by that in either direction, which is why for a baseball pitcher or hitter, it's so devastating. And again, this is going to come down to the grading and just how functional is he. So I think the second you see him out there throwing, that's going to be probably the highest force that he's going to put on it. So once we see that's going to be a pretty good sign if you see that on Friday.
Again, Will Carroll, the injury expert, is with us here on the Payless Liquor sideline. All right, let's move over to Jonathan Taylor. You and I were trading a few texts about it. You don't have too much concern that this is the same ankle he battled a couple years ago. Again, he had surgery last January on that right ankle. It is a mild high ankle sprain is how it was initially reported. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it doesn't bother me that it's the same ankle. When you have an injury to the same ankle, you worry that either it's, again, you're hurting what you hurt before, that it's significantly weaker. But 2 years on, if that thing hasn't healed by now, it's never healing. So I don't think we have to worry about that too much. What you worry about is just it's absolutely necessary for him to function. High ankle sprains are tough. They linger. They're difficult to heal. It's not the ankle. It's actually the joint between the two bones of the lower leg, the tibia and the fibula, and it's called the syndesmosis. So we don't want to say syndesmotic sprain too many times. So somebody said high ankle. It doesn't move very much. You don't want bones moving very much in situations like that, but it's necessary. And when you see it roll over, usually it'd be the opposite. We think of ankle sprains, you roll it out, where your little toe kind of goes under. This, it rolls over the big toe side, and the pressure goes higher up. So it's the same sort of sprain. It's damage to a ligament. If it's mild, it comes down to function. Can he cut? Can he push off?
That was going to be my next question. Will Haskett with us here, injury expert on the Payless Liquors hotline.
Will Carroll.
What did I saw? Will Haskett?
Yeah.
I think
He's
I've
our
done
golf
that.
guru.
I think I've done that like three. I think I've done that 3 times today. And you
We
guys
have an
just
injury
caught
guru
it.
and a golf guru.
Matt Taylor, Matt Adams.
I don't know what's wrong with me. I got to be honest. I don't know what's wrong with me. Let's do this one.
I've been called a lot worse.
I'm sure you have. Mild high ankle sprain. Is it just pain? Is it we need to sit him for a week? What are they going to be looking at here over the next few days? And I say that on kind of the backdrop of this, Will, is Jonathan Taylor's very in tune with his body, and he knows what the hell's going on with his ankles over the last couple seasons.
Yeah, this is going to be a little bit different because it's a high ankle rather than a low ankle. It's going to be a little bit different because it's going to change the function. If you've got an ankle sprain, pretty much everybody's gone out and played pickup hoops and rolled their ankle, and you feel it, and it hurts for a little bit, and then you run a little bit, and you're fine. That's what you hope it is. It's probably a little more serious than that, especially the high ankle. It takes more force. It's going to come down to, if this is mild, a very low-grade sprain, then it's going to come down to function. If you get a high-grade sprain, Tua Tagovailoa has what's called tightrope. It's basically Kevlar rather than ligaments in both ankles. And he plays just fine. I mean, this isn't nearly that serious. But, for him, it's going to come down to function. Can he run? Can he cut? Can he stop and start the way that an NFL running back needs to?
Again, Will Carroll's with us here. You can follow him on Twitter at The Injury Expert. Will, last one injury-related from me, and I want to go back to Richardson. Are you of the belief that guys can be injury-prone?
Yes and no. I mean, at some point, if you have a number of injuries, especially multi-system, if you hurt one thing over and over, then, like Ronald Acuna has hurt both knees, had ACLs on both knees, which is unusual in baseball. I think maybe there's probably something genetic, which is interesting since we'll see Luis Angel, his brother, in the playoffs as well. So it's one of those things where you have to call it something. When somebody simply can't hold up to the workload and the forces of the NFL, is it injury prone? Is it genetics? Is it work ethic? Usually not. They made it to the NFL, for God's sakes. But there is something to it. I don't think it's a weakness. I think it's a little bit of luck. And if I'm the Colts, I know they changed the turf, but how many leg injuries do we need before we start saying maybe it's not the turf, maybe it's the preparation?
Is that more strength conditioning or is that medical team? Because I feel like I kind of always fight that with myself as well.
Well, I don't think we can blame the medical staff because, concussion, they can't prevent that.
Right.
An oblique strain, what are they supposed to do to prevent that? Could that be that he wasn't in shape? Looking at Anthony Richardson, I don't think that's really a consideration. Muscle strains are going to happen. Can you reduce them? Yes. What you want a medical staff to do is reduce them as much as you can, and then once somebody has one, gets them back on the low end. When you hear somebody out 2 to 4 weeks, say, you want them back closer to the 2 than the 4. I think that's where you really see the value of the medical staff. And, of course, the other is being able to take care of people on the field. If you think back to DeMar Hamlin and the fact that he's playing and playing well today, you certainly have to credit the medical staff for him being alive, let alone playing the NFL. That's obviously the most extreme situation, but it happens more than you think.
All right, we'll end with this. A World Series pick is what?
You got to think the Dodgers just because they got the most talent. But, man, you want to talk about an injury-prone season. They've gone through they've put their pitchers through a wood chipper, it seems, and they don't have very much coming in. So I actually think the Orioles. The Orioles right now are maybe the most talented team in the league. They've got good pitching at the top. They've figured out their bullpen. So I'm going to go Orioles, but, man, it sure feels like the Dodgers. Spending a couple $2 billion usually helps.
Orioles not bad if, they can get by the first round, and that might not be easy. They've owned the Yankees. They have owned the Yankees this season, so they could, if they beat the Yankees in the second round, I wouldn't be surprised at all. They could be the ALCS. No.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really competitive, really well balanced. Look, there's not a team that ran away this year. Normally you have a team that ran away with the division. The closest we had to that was the Brewers, and that's just because the NL Central was terrible. The only thing we had that was extreme this year was the White Sox, and oh my God, that was just a meltdown.
Will Carroll, the injury expert right there. Will, as always, thank you for the info. Hopefully we're not talking to you for a while.
Thanks a lot, guys.
That's Will Carroll right there, Payless Liquors Hotline.
I guess for me, I tend to look at these things in a negative way. I don't mind saying it. I don't have a huge amount of confidence about Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor on Sunday. I'm lacking confidence. I'm off day today. Wednesday, I guess we'll see. But is there a chance they're without Kenny Moore, DeForest Buckner? Who am I missing here? Jonathan Taylor, Kwity Paye, Anthony Richardson. I mean, there is a possibility they go into Jacksonville down 8 starters potentially in this game.
And again, Jacksonville missing their 3 best defenders in all likelihood.
Oh.
They are pretty banged up as well. So, part of this is, I guess, is just a little bit of welcome to life in the NFL. But it does seem like, from a notable standpoint, there are several names on that Colts list. Yeah, I'm curious how they just react to Richardson this week. There are quarterbacks that play all the time at 85%.
Sure.
Things like that. And you gut it out and you play through a bunch of different things. Do you treat Richardson differently? Because
yes,
I guess he is the young prize.
Well, he's different. Yeah.
Yeah. But, do you or will they, I guess is the question. That's, how do you look at Sunday? Was he ready to go back in? And Shane Steichen said no? I mean, he had his helmet on.
Yeah.
Usually, if you're not medically cleared, you don't put the helmet back on.
I know.
So
it feels like that's the case, doesn't it? It feels it's more the case than Anthony just simply couldn't go back in, that Steichen said, I'm sitting you the rest of the game. I'm leading 17-0, and right now the Pittsburgh offense looks terrible, and our defense is playing pretty good.
Yeah,
That's how I view it. Is that how you view it?
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at.
But we don't know.
You know, again, I go back to why wasn't he in the blue tent right away? That, to me, was a big mistake. You know, when he's writhing in pain to that degree, I think you do have to treat him a little differently. But we'll see if any limitations this week. First practice coming up tomorrow. Limitations mobility-wise. I don't think you can overlook limitations throwing-wise. You know, I mean, if an already inconsistent quarterback has accuracy issues or deep ball issues, maybe that's the better way to put it, considering that is a strength of his. I think that could play into it. Again, Joe Flacco did play against Jacksonville last year, for what it's worth. It's a new defensive coordinator in Jacksonville, but yeah, he had a 300-yard day, 3 touchdowns against the Jags late last season.
Listen, I know optics may not matter as much to them. It's about the data that they have, and they have more. But imagine, I mean, this goes to Sunday a little bit, but it also goes to the Jacksonville game this week. If they go out there with Anthony Richardson, the story of his career in the NFL has been injuries. It has. That's what it's been, okay? Locally, nationally, the story of Anthony Richardson has been availability, injuries, and him being on the field, surgery, and everything else. If the lasting impact is he got injured, just think about this. He got injured. We saw the hit to the back, the hip, whatever. He goes back in the game a couple plays later, and already the optics and Shane Steichen and everybody else is, why the hell are you running that RPO? And then he's not 100%. He's dealing with something all week, and you put him out there and you see another play that is similar to that RPO, or he gets injured again. As an organization, you're going to have to say more than 7 seconds. And Shane Steichen's not ready to do that. I mean, he's just not. And so that's the reason with Anthony that I'm very skeptical if he's going to play. Can I play a clip for you?
Yeah.
Okay, let me play a clip for you. This is from Rick Venturi, who you know I love. I have a mini man crush on him. Last night on the Colts Roundtable, all the guys there talking about Anthony Richardson, the injury, his running style. And Venturi, this is only about 20, 30 seconds here. Venturi, this is what worries him about AR and his running style going forward.
My biggest worry is, we praised him up and down for running over the guy in Texas.
Right.
But it's not sustainable. But the problem I have with him, he is a downhill player. He is not a shake and bake guy, like a Lamar, like a Murray, like some of those guys are shake and bake guys. He's a downhill guy. And so, I'm not sure. I'm hoping against hope that we can somehow, I guess the word would be tweak, because you're not going to change that instinct. I'm just telling you, I coached too long. You're not going to change it.
I found that interesting. We've talked so much about his running, just the numbers, right? Taking hits, sliding. The other thing, when you watch AR, and Coach is right there, he's a different runner than Lamar. Lamar, even in Louisville, never was taking. He took a couple, but never was taking huge hits. Kyler Murray, you think of him never taking huge hits.
Richardson's a tight end.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And Richardson, when he's running up the middle, he's, his mind isn't thinking or reacting like Lamar or Kyler Murray or some of these other guys. It's reacting a little bit more like Josh Allen early in his career, that I'm going to lower the head, or even Will Levis last year, I'm going to lower the head. So I thought that was a good point. It's not always sliding. It's not always attempts. It's what you're doing with those attempts, where you're running, and his thought process when he's running the football. And his thought process has been, I'm going to run and I'm going to get hit and I'm going to be a battering ram.
Yeah, and again, I don't know if I just think he's such a big target to be hit.
I know.
And if you look at all these hits so far, none of them have been flagged. None of these injuries have resulted from flags or, breaking the rules as a defender. And I think 5 of the 6 hits or 4 of the 5 hits have been by guys weighing 220 pounds or less. He's had a 30, 40-pound weight advantage on so many of these guys, and yet the hits have still led to those injuries. So on Richardson watch throughout the week. Again, if you missed it earlier, Will Carroll with us a little bit earlier in the 9 o'clock hour. Jonathan Taylor with that right ankle. We'll see about Tyquan Lewis as well. That was an elbow injury late in the game. He's been a very important player for this team this season. that'll be one to monitor. Also, shout out to Rick Carlisle. We had him on earlier in the show. We'll start those Tuesday weekly 8 o'clock segments with the Pacers head coach. Training camp begins today, their first practice in a week. And I'll speak for myself. I would say the most interesting tidbit that Rick shared was basically the NBA sat down the coaches a few weeks ago and said, expect a more physical league this year. Officiating-wise, we're going to let more stuff go. I think in Rick's words, I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, expect it to be more FIBA-like with that. So I'll be curious how the Pacers answer to that, because I don't think anyone labels them as a physical bullying bunch. How do they handle that from
James
an officiating
Johnson,
standpoint
20 minutes.
and a physical
Well,
standpoint?
he said it. We didn't have to follow up. He thought it was good for them, and I don't know if he thinks that's because on the defensive side they're not going to be fouling as much.
Yeah, they can get away with more.
They can get away, and maybe it looks like they're a better defensive team, and he still believes that if scoring's down a little bit, their scoring will still be pretty damn high because of the way they play. But I don't know. I guess it's a good time for Miles Turner to put on 7 pounds. I love how athletes are like, I put on 7 pounds. I'm
Did
like,
he say Halliburton's put on 15 to 17 pounds of muscle?
I don't remember him saying that. I'm going to have to go back and listen to the podcast.
Mark,
now.
was I imagining things?
He
Did
said,
you hear that?
he said
I don't
he
recall
put on,
hearing that.
No, I didn't remember the 15 to 17. I think I remember at the beginning that he put on muscle. I mean, that would be substantial. I do love how guys like Turner's like, I put on 7 pounds. I'm like, yeah, I did too last weekend. It's called the NFL Week 4.
I saw Victor Wembanyama put on 25 pounds of muscle. I'm like, what the hell?
Well,
What's that going to look like?
Maybe, I guess that's the thing. Because I was kind of curious with Halliburton how banged up he's been, over the offseason and just the Team USA stuff. Could he be able to do that there? So plenty of Pacers conversation coming up here in the next week or so.
Do we get a winner to the Billy Joel Sting tickets?
We did.
Mark?
Shout out to Aaron, who was very excited.
I'm sure.
We've got 4 more packs to give away all week long.
4 pairs of tickets the rest of the week. So we have 4 more sets of tickets to give away.
And just a reminder, pop quiz-wise, we'll do that upcoming. We've got that lacrosse experience coming up over at IU Indy. That is Carroll Stadium over there. Not this weekend, but the next weekend. So great lacrosse action from a national team standpoint, but also plenty of stuff to do with the kids and things like that. So we'll give away. Those are 4 packs, Mark?
I thought it was just a 2-pack.
That's also just a
pair?
pair?
I think it's just a 2-pack,
So we'll do that here coming up with
pair of tickets
with the pop quiz.
You ready to get into a morning check down?
Let's do it.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Marion University Football, pursuing another NAIA championship this season. Don't miss the on-campus action at Ascension St. Vincent Field. Visit NUnites.com for tickets.
All right, we talked a lot about Anthony Richardson there. I guess let's keep it right there for your morning check down. Let's start with the Colts. As always, Shane Steichen meeting with the media yesterday. I think he was asked about Stephen Holder, who will join us tomorrow at 8 o'clock. The injury-prone label, what does Steichen think of it?
There's always those things out there, injury prone, guys get hurt. I mean, it's football. Guys go out and play, and injuries happen sometimes. You don't want them to happen, and obviously it happened, and obviously it wasn't a huge injury, and so we'll see how the week progresses and go from there.
Again, I think this probably falls more to the day-to-day category, week-to-week. Oftentimes in NFL lingo, day-to-day means they might miss a week. Week-to-week means they're probably going to miss nearly a month.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I interpret it, but obviously we'll get some more clarity as the week moves along. Again, Jacksonville is a slight favorite in this, 2.5, trying to go for their first win. But right now, Doug Peterson is fielding questions on his job security, the play calling for Press Taylor, their offensive coordinator, and, there was a comment even after the game, something to the effect of Doug Peterson saying, hey, guys got to make plays. So, it is a lot of dysfunction right now. Again, the Jags they're 1-10, I believe, in their last 11 games, something like that. And Trevor Lawrence hasn't won a start since I think it's October. Maybe it's November.
I think it's November. It's right around. It's right around Thanksgiving. Yeah, Doug Peterson came out and said coaches can only do so much. The players play the game, and I'm like, while I agree with you, coaches usually don't say that, especially when they're 0-4.
No, not.
That's how you get fired.
Not at all. All right, last night Monday Night Football, you had an ugly one down in Miami. Will Levis exited early after another awful interception with a right shoulder injury or a shoulder AC joint injury. we'll see about his status coming out of the bye. Again, the Colts do play the Titans in a week, so that'll be something to keep an eye on. Tennessee was great, but don't think like super explosive with Mason Rudolph by any means. They beat the Dolphins 31-12. Miami just could do nothing with Tyler Huntley getting the start down there. So if you look at it, the next 3 games, the Colts will play teams with 2 total wins, and one of the wins was against another team. Like the Titans beat the Dolphins last night, if that makes sense.
Let me ask you this. Do you view it as a good time, given that the Colts are so damn injured right now? Do you view it as, hey, this is a good thing? Not a good thing. It is, we're playing bad teams, so if we're going to have injuries, it's now. Or I kind of view it the other way, that if we were totally healthy facing these bad teams, we could be looking at a 5-2 football team.
Well, I
know that's difficult in the NFL.
I think you have to acknowledge the other team's injuries as well. I mean, again, Miami's not going to have Tua for that matchup. So if you saw Tua, whatever, at the start of the year when they did win a game, would that be different? I guess I don't even know. Would you rather face Will Levis or Mason Rudolph? I have no idea.
Well, I think Will Levis.
What your answer is?
Levis is a turnover machine.
Right.
He is.
It's not like Mason Rudolph has done
is.
anything either. So that is something to keep an eye on as well. So, again, such a massive stretch upcoming for the Colts. All 3 divisional road games here in the month of October. It's easily the biggest quarter stretch of the season.
Let me give you one from Pacers Media Day yesterday. We haven't heard too much of this. We've talked about this. This is my calling card that I figured Halliburton and others would see that the Pacers are kind of, by many, seen as maybe the 6th, 7th team there in the Eastern Conference, despite what they did last year in the playoffs. Here's Halliburton yesterday on some of the negativity online.
I'm chronically online, as a lot of you know. So, I'm sure if I had my phone on me right now, I could show you my bookmarks. But I think I just kind of gained those motivations from everywhere. I also was on the Olympic team, and there was a lot of talk there as well. But I think that it just kind of comes from many different places. But just type Pacers into Google, and I'm sure you'll be able to find it. So it's everywhere.
I love him. He's so online, isn't he? I'm so online. Just take Pacers
I know the kids
into
are online
Google.
too much these days.
Oh, my goodness. Well, they are. Halliburton's one of them. I love when people say that. We always have our phones on us. Like, yeah, because 30 years ago, we didn't have this awesome phone right on us.
And I get it. I would boo too if I had to be an Orlando Magic fan. I get it.
I forgot he called out the Magic. Magic did take 2 of 3 from the Pacers.
Yeah, they did.
This past season.
They're a matchup nightmare.
First practice of training camp today. Again, their first preseason game. It's crazy here a week from Tuesday. Also, should have mentioned Lions Monday Night Football, 42-29. In true Dan Campbell fashion, he forgot to give a game ball to Jared Goff, and Jared Goff was 18 of 18 and caught a touchdown.
Who did he give it to? Do you remember? Who did he give it to?
Probably an offensive lineman.
If not Jared Goff, did he get to Jamar Gibbs, who had a couple touchdowns?
Jamison Williams
what are we
certainly
doing?
had a big play last night.
They're a good team, man.
Amon St. Brown, and again, their skill group, very, very potent.
You thought Jared Goff had the ball the whole time. Give it to someone else.
On that end, exactly. A local note on the college football ranks. We mentioned yesterday, Purdue, Ryan Walters fired Graham Harrell as offensive coordinator. The play caller now for what looks to be the rest of the season, former Ben Davis, Noblesville, Hamilton Heights coach Jason Simmons. So a couple of years ago, I remember this news item certainly being one we chatted with Greg Rakestraw about. Jason Simmons leaving Butler, heading to Miami of Ohio to be the running backs coach. He was there just briefly, joined Ryan Walters' staff, and now all of a sudden, and you do kind of see this. Hell, remember when the Colts promoted Parks Frazier to be their play caller? They don't want to promote the position coach because that leads to more dominoes here. So Jason Simmons, quite the promotion here, quite the opportunity. But right now, Purdue, world's dysfunction. They are a double-digit underdog at a place they haven't won since 2003. That would be Madison, Wisconsin, coming up on Saturday. Indiana going for bowl eligibility on October 5th, which is absolutely insane. They are a 2-touchdown favorite on Northwestern, and Notre Dame hits their bye week.
Oh, they're on the bye this week?
Much needed.
Oh, there you go. You rest up in the bye. No one get in trouble.
Banged up. Notre Dame
No
football
one
team.
party too hard where Marcus Freeman's getting a call late at night. You never want to get that call.
Stay away from the St. Mary's girls this weekend.
Quick Tuesday schedule, Major League Baseball. Astros hosting the Tigers 2:30. That's today. ABC, Baltimore, Kansas City, 4 o'clock on ESPN2. Brewers and Mets, 5:30 on ESPN. Atlanta and San Diego at 8:30.
And I know we mentioned this at the start of the show, but we definitely should double back on it. Certainly yesterday we saw the passing of a couple of legends in the world of sports. Late last night it was Pete Rose at the age of 83. This tweet here from Kevin Youkilis really stood out to me. Kevin Youkilis shares this. There's only one way to play baseball growing up in Cincinnati. The Pete Rose way of not taking a pitch off, never coming home with a clean uniform. Forever grateful to Pete for teaching me how to play the game the right way. Again, it is a very complex Pete Rose legacy, but that will be my memory of just like ultimate competitor. And I referenced earlier in the show that 1970 All-Star game of that iconic clip of watching him run over Ray Fosse there at home plate. It's that. I mean, again, there's a lot to it, just like there's a lot to Bob Knight, but that is probably will be my lasting memory of just the competitive spirit like no other.
Sports radio gas bags will now go from should Pete Rose be in the Hall of Fame to why didn't you put him in the Hall of Fame when he was alive? That will be the pivot. I heard Tony Katz talking about it this morning, and it's exactly what I was thinking. That will be
Tony Katz is talking about
yeah,
that?
Yeah, you better
Doesn't he
believe
have a
it.
debate tonight?
Is there a debate tonight? I guess there is. I have no idea. I have no
Somebody
idea.
asked why they don't separate his playing career from his managerial career.
Oh, God. I don't know. Listen,
Well,
Pete,
didn't both overlap?
yeah, I mean, Pete,
I don't know.
do not get it mixed. Pete Rose was a scoundrel in many, many ways. He also,
Yeah, honestly, his competitive spirit was probably too much.
right. I mean, he also was all these other. I mean, he was benevolent at times. He was very funny, a great storyteller, a historic player, a great player. I think people of a certain age, their fathers growing up as a kid in Pete Rose and what that meant, especially in Cincinnati. So he is a complex is right. He reminds me a ton of Bobby Knight. I mean, there's a lot of Bobby Knight there. So. He passed away, and then Dikembe Mutombo, just so young, so early, such a humanitarian, such a fun player on the court, and a really good player. When you think of,
We probably don't give him enough credit for him as a player.
I would agree with you. I thought, even as he went in his career and became a much older player, still was a very, very good player. Of course, the iconic holding the ball up as the 8-1 when the Denver Nuggets beat Seattle. I think my guy Dan Issel was the head coach when they had that upset. So maybe I should text him. But Dikembe Mutombo, just 58 years old with brain cancer. That's a sad one.
I mean, and you think about his post-playing career impact of just the legacy that now you see. Hell, we saw it in the Olympics with South Sudan's appearance in the Olympics. And I mean, we had an African MVP in Joel Embiid and Pascal Siakam with the Pacers and so many things on that end. I mean, you use the word humanitarian platform. One of the Mutombo stories I saw yesterday that really stood out to me was his mother passed away in large part due to being in a war-torn country where ambulance couldn't get to her in time to take her to the hospital. So what does Dikembe Mutombo do? He built a hospital in his hometown. Again, such a global influence that we probably don't fully realize, obviously being halfway across the world there. So, yes, as you said, Andy, 58 years old, Dikembe Mutombo. Passes of brain cancer.
Yeah, there's your morning check down. Some sad stuff there at the end, no doubt, last night. Let's take a break. Coming up on the other side, pop quiz time, 317-239-1070. We'll play the pop quiz next here on this Tuesday.
Can you handle the pressure? Sharpen your pencils. It's time for the Pop Quiz with KB and Andy. Brought to you by Jiffy Lube, Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985.
All right, pop quiz time, and all week long, we'll give away a pair of tickets to the USA Lacrosse Experience coming to IU Indy. That is a week from this weekend. So that would be October 11th through the 13th over there at Carroll Stadium. So what you're going to get here is the U.S. national lacrosse teams competing against top rivals from around the globe, and also you get some youth games, skills clinic, national team players, and a girls mentorship as well. So we'll give that away all week long here. A pair of tickets for full weekend passes there over at IU Indy.
I've always said, man, I wish I played lacrosse growing up. And it's a sport that used to be predominantly Northeast, and now it's moved into the South and everything else.
I was going to say it was probably a decently big sport when you were growing up, given where you grew up, right?
Yeah. I mean, I lived in the Western New York until I was 10 years old. Absolutely. 1,000%. That and bowling. I could have been a great lacrosse player, and I could be averaging 271 in bowling. Instead, here I am with you, talking about Jonathan Taylor's ankle for the third year in a row.
Someone was messaging me the other day about Drew Ogletree, Colts player, is an avid bowler.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah.
Who was this? Chris Paul was the big bowler back in the day.
I do think it is a popular professional sport hobby. If you're a professional athlete, that's like a hobby of yours.
Gotcha.
I feel like bowling is. All right, give us a number 1 through 8.
Let's go number 4, Mark. How does that sound? Caller number 4.
It sounds like Tom.
Hey, Tom.
Morning.
Tom, you a bowler?
Not for a million years, but I did when I was a kid.
You go bumpers or no?
No,
you can't do bumpers.
No, not at all. Not at all. No,
I don't know what time the age runs out. What's the line, but you can't do it if you're an adult.
I think the moment you get armpit hair, you can't do bumpers.
I think the moment you can grip the ball with one hand.
Yeah, I think it depends upon how many beers you've had.
That's probably a fair point as well. I don't know. This pop quiz strikes me as somewhat doable.
Yeah, it's not terrible. You got to be honest. I even knew a couple of them.
Certainly, I remember the answer to number 4 quite well, Scotty. So thank you for that memory on that. That was in prime time as well, right?
Scotty's making sure you remember. That's it.
Go ahead.
Question number 1, Tom. Let's get a winner today on this Tuesday. In fact, we've mentioned this one a couple different times, this question. With the Titans win last night in Miami, we're down to one winless team in the NFL. Who is it? Carolina Panthers, Cleveland Browns, New England Patriots, Jacksonville Jaguars.
Jaguars.
Number 2 here, Tom, but the Seahawks lost in Detroit last night. We're down to 2 unbeaten teams in the league. Can you name one of the 2?
Vikings.
Can you name both?
Yeah, Chiefs.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, all right, we're on to something here.
We're cooking here.
This is a 5 for 5. There's no way Tom screws this up.
Oh, settle down. Question number 3. Pete Rose passed away yesterday at the age of 83. Now, Rose is Major League Baseball's all-time leader in hits with 4,256. With which team was Rose playing for when he collected his 4,000th hit? Was it the Reds, Phillies, Expos, or Cubs?
I think he was still with the Phillies.
The other Pete Rose thing I saw yesterday was local banks in Cincinnati would no longer let people have their 4-digit PIN be 4192. Because so many people decided that would be their PIN. It's kind of funny. One of how I memorized my PIN was via a sports anecdote. It's not as obvious as that.
Okay.
But it just shows you kind of how sports centric.
Well, I have a PIN number too that might be revolving around sports. But
there you go.
I don't like the fact that they know our PIN numbers.
Well,
I also don't. I know nothing is secret anymore.
They know
in
everything.
The world. I know they do.
I mean, hell, I couldn't make a call because I was Verizon yesterday for about 8 hours. All right, number 4 here, Tom. Jared Goff, all 18 passes thrown were completed last night. He's the only quarterback in NFL history to complete every pass in a game with more than 10 attempts. But the threshold for the NFL completion percentage record in a game, you need 20 attempts. Who holds the record for his completion percentage with the minimum of 20 attempts in an NFL game? Brady, Breeze, Peyton, or Montana?
Breeze.
Against who?
The Colts.
29 of 30. That's pretty good. What's the one he missed? Do you remember?
Scotty, if I remember correctly, it was like a little running back swing pass.
Of course it was.
And it was all on him.
Of course it was.
It's not like the Colts, whatever, blew it up or anything like that.
That's great. Question number 5. It's October 1st, which means it's playoff baseball time. On this day in 1903, the first World Series game in history took place. Where was the first World Series game played? Boston, Pittsburgh, Philly, or New York City?
Really? You say Chicago?
No, Boston, Pittsburgh, Philly, New York City.
Let's go with Boston.
Man, Tom did good, man.
I'm smart.
That's a 4 out of
smart. Tom's smart.
It's a 4 out of 5, and I'm surprised on question number 3 you didn't help him. I'm very surprised there.
I am a man of integrity more often than not on the pop quiz, especially the deeper we go. I was so confident he'd go 5 for 5. I was stunned he didn't get 3.
I know. Again, number 3, Pete Rose hit number 4,000 with the Expos.
How long was he in Expos now?
This was back in 1984.
It was fun while it lasted.
The reason I think of it is Pete Rose wearing that Expos hat was pretty gross. Like that to me was pretty gross.
Speaking of it was fun while it lasted, that Rick Carlisle comment, did you see the Pacers? I didn't think he was on the training camp roster. Maybe it's a question when we have a Pacer-related guest on, not Rick Carlisle, because I don't feel
you would ask. I know where you're going with this.
The need to ask it. Did you see they signed Jahlil Okafor?
Oh, I didn't see that. I thought you were going to talk about, is it Tamanaga, our guy who got an Exhibit 10 contract?
Well, I think
whatever the hell that means.
I think that's what Okafor got.
I totally forgot about Jahlil Okafor.
Which I think that means Mad Ant. I think that's what that means.
I think that most definitely means Mad Ant.
So,
yeah.
I mean, Okafor was what? I mean, he was a top 3 pick, was he not?
Oh, yeah. He absolutely was. He's
28
good at college.
years old. Last time he played in the NBA was 2021.
Okay. Wow, that's a long time ago.
And again, I don't think this applies to Okafor, but, James Wiseman they signed in the offseason, and I think Wiseman currently dealing with a groin injury, so that'd be something to watch. But, the Pacers do have a question at center.
Sure.
Of A, what's the future for Turner? And B, just kind of Isaiah Jackson. Do you need any depth? I mean, every year over 82 games, there's some night like your third center is needed.
Oh, someone's getting injured. I'm blanking. Who's my guy with the goggles who's not on the team anymore, who started out so good?
Jalen Smith.
Yeah, Jalen Smith was fantastic last year, and then after the first month and a half of the season, what happened?
It's just kind of wild the Pacers have James Wiseman and Jahlil Okafor.
Back in 2020, we would have thought they're going to go right to the NBA championship. Good stuff there. Tom, you did a fine job.
Hell of an effort.
You still got the lacrosse tickets, but no oil change for you. We'll take a break, come back. We'll wrap up the show next.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Really enjoyed the combos today. Rick Carlisle, 8 o'clock, and he mentioned to us he is expecting a much more physical NBA this season from an officiating standpoint. Think a little FIBA action on that end. So, as always, I think great stuff with Rick. So that'll be up on the podcast. Then Will Carroll, the injury expert, at 9. I hate to overread too much into what Will said, but I don't know. Maybe he has a little bit more concern, abdominal oblique, than maybe strictly labeling it day to day. Is that fair?
Yeah, it sounded like to me. I mean, he basically said it that the oblique abdominal area would be worse for him. It sounded like than the hip, as the hip.
Yeah,
has
I think that's a fair way to say.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to say it.
More torque, more again the mobility in his body. As I'm trying to motion that on the YouTube camera. That was pathetic.
At least your shirt is on while you're doing all the hip movements and everything else.
You can't see a lot of the abdominal oblique, whether the shirt's on or off. Let me make that very
Anytime
clear.
I think of oblique, I think of Giancarlo Stanton limping to first place and missing a month and a half. I don't think that will be the case here, obviously, but it's sad that that's the first thing I think of is a baseball player having an oblique and missing a month.
And again, Shane Steichen said, about as much as, Little Gas or Max Bowen would say. But when he was asked yesterday specifically about the hip pointer, he never confirmed that.
Right.
He was like, yeah, we think hip. And then, I asked him, are you waiting MRI results? He's like, yes, we are. So it sounds like we're kind of backtracking from hip pointer, and now we're more, again, abdominal oblique area. Tomorrow, first practice. That'll be something to watch.
For what it's worth, Ian Rappaport, I think, is the only one to kind of go out there with some of the injury updates. I'm talking nationally. Did
right?
Pelissero have something too?
I thought Pelissero was the one that said abdominal oblique.
Okay.
I thought he was the one yesterday evening.
Speaking of, I don't know if you saw this or not. Have you seen some of the names on Twitter? Andrew Marchand of The Athletic, who used to work for The Post in New York, who does a lot of the media stuff. He reports on the media. That's what he does, which I actually think is a pretty cool job.
Yeah, it's great for us.
No, I mean, it's fantastic. Have you seen some of the names that are being kicked around since Adrian Wojnarowski went to St. Bonaventure basketball?
I have, and I'm confused.
Okay, so the first one is, there's a thought out there that Adam Schefter would do both the NBA and the NFL. I mean, it's that, which is unbelievable. Didn't he do that a couple years ago? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Scotty's shaking his head. Like 3-4 years ago, he started reporting on a couple NBA stories, and people are like, what the hell are you doing? I just can't imagine. Schefter has been open about his schedule and how much work he's doing, much like Woj. I cannot imagine throwing that on top of it, especially if he's not the best. Schefter obviously one of the best, if not the best, in the NFL. And then, why am I blanking on his name? Jeff Passan, yeah. Jeff Passan moving from Major League Baseball to the NBA is all sorts of interesting. Does he have the contacts there?
Do these guys just hate their families that much?
They must. I mean, the money's pretty good. Yes, the money's pretty good. I would imagine you're getting a new contract and some sort of raise if you're him.
Good because you've got literally no free time.
I was going to say, and you're going to have to get a new family. I guess if you want that.
You just buy one. You just buy a new family.
Literally.
You just buy a new one.
I mean, that sounds awful to me. I just, not to get on a media rant, but I guess if I could for 30 seconds.
Sure.
I think the breaking news business is one of the more slippery, shady, just icky areas to get involved in. Because Andy Sweeney, if you are Anthony Richardson's agent and I'm Adam Schefter, and you're going to tell me, hey, man, my guy's going to miss Sunday's game against Jacksonville, and I report that, as Anthony Richardson's agent, you do a tally mark and you say, 1, I just helped out Adam Schefter.
Mm-hmm.
When's he going to help me out?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And again, play this out because Dalvin Cook years ago was this type of story. But now all of a sudden, let's say Anthony Richardson gets involved in an off-the-field incident.
Sure.
And you want to spin it in your direction. You're going to contact me, and you're going to try and get the biggest mouthpiece in the NFL to spin it in that direction, right?
Right.
You're right.
You're right.
Again, if anyone wants to Google it, Google Dalvin Cook, Robert Klemko, and you will get into this rabbit hole of how these things via Schefter can get spun. So, boy, I get that there's certainly an audience for it. And to your point, Andy, they make great, great money. But I just think you're always having to feed mouths, and they want you to make sure you can be that puppet when they need you the most.
Listen, it is. I don't want to make it sound like it's not valuable. It's obviously very valuable. These people are being paid all of the money. And, KB, if you came out and you had a story on something Anthony Richardson and you reported it, I mean, we'd be all over. We'd talk about it. So I don't want to make it sound like it's nothing at all.
I'm not. I just think it's messy.
No, listen, it is messy. I almost feel like it has transferred a little bit to the analysis of the breaking news.
That's what I like.
Like some of the Stephen A. Smith stuff, Pat McAfee stuff, those guys reacting to the breaking news. Now, you want both. If you're ESPN, you want the newsbreaker, and then you want the guy who can, the man or woman who can go on TV and yell and scream about it. The other name was you just hire Shams. And you bring him up from...
What about bumping up Windhorse or Tim Bontemps or some of these others?
See, I thought this would be a time for Windhorse maybe to kind of ascend there, but I don't know. I mean, whatever they do, Shams is number 2, so if you brought the number 2 and you made him the number 1, that's a little bit what you did with Adam Schefter over a decade ago.
I just don't get, the firing of Zach Lowe to me was weird. I don't, it all, I mean, I guess you get into a huge rabbit hole with ESPN optics and everything, so... Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
I did see Woj. He's going around the country. He's at high schools, shaking hands with coaches.
He ain't recruiting like Micah Shrewsbury in the Irish. I'll tell you that.
I see Notre Dame fans.
The number one class in the land.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
What do you mean?
We'll see if that
holds. They got
holds.
4 top 100 kids.
Wait until John Calipari starts getting that Arkansas money out there here in the next couple weeks.
By the way, the clear and obvious choice for replacing Woj is Mike Greenberg, is it not? He's got every other job in the game. Just to add that to his resume.
It's a great point.
Here comes 2 hours on the Jets, starting here in about 3 minutes.
Oh, goodness. If you missed any of the show, including Rick Carlisle, check it out, 1075thefan.com. We're back at it tomorrow, 7 a.m. Have a good day right here.